Hello. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? I
Yes.
can't hear you. Oh, there. I heard a yes. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am freezing. Can you tell in my studio? Look at me with my fleece. But I just turned on a little heater I have here, so I should be able to disrobe sometime soon. But this is my fleece that I keep in the studio for when it's like cold in winter and I'm working in here. I'm putting it on for right
Mhm.
now. Cold, cold, cold. Is it just me or is it cold, you guys? You're all kind of, who knows? That's one of the things that I this last, well, a year, whatever, is it a year now? I've taught out of my living room for 5 years and we set up this basically glorified shed. It's literally a shed that we put drywall on it and it's my studio now, but it's my first time noticing how cold it's gonna get as we get into winter. All right. Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Let me head over to the chat and have a little good morning in there. And if you can all do the same, that would be great. I also want to put in there the link to the Padlet so people can follow me to the Padlet where you guys have been doing marvelous work. And Sarah, can you add your last name? Do you remember how to add the last name to your whatever video? There we go. All right. So morning Vera, morning Stan, morning Gary, morning
Morning.
Karen, and morning Sarah. And there's a couple more people, more than a couple, quite a few more people missing. So hopefully they will show up, but there's a lot of work done by people who aren't here in the Padlet, but I'm gonna start talking about one thing first. One thing first. Two things. Two announcements first. The first announcement is that for I hope I sent it to you guys. I believe I did. Did you receive a request for an evaluation from me? Okay, so those of you who are taking many of my classes, this is only every 3 years, but try to fill it each time you get it because it's about once per class. So if I have, 20 students and only 5 fill it because the other 10 are in another class, then it looks like only 5 answered this week, for this class, like something's wrong. Why wouldn't someone else have said something about this class or stuff like so if you can, I apologize. And it's not like always happening, but yeah, if you have a chance, you can maybe copy paste your answers or something that way. Anyway, so okay, I see what you said, Stan. Thank you. All right. And the second one is that so that's one announcement. And then the other announcement is that next Monday night, I start teaching my digital design techniques class. And let me put the information here on the chat. It is and it is Monday and Wednesdays. There we go. So it's Monday and Wednesdays, 5 to 8:45, twice a week, and it's actually 3 weeks. It's short because it's, twice a week and many hours. Now, the thing about that class, though, is that it's full, but it isn't because you can't drop a class before you take it. Before I can't drop you from a class before you take it, and already 3 people have mentioned that they're not going to be able to take it. And it's at 25 and the cap is 25. So if anyone wants to take this, just email me. I'll send you a form that's signed so that they can add you. Okay. So in digital design techniques, what we do is we cover um, a combination of Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign to create, which is kind of the industry standard in order to create final pieces printed or for the screen. It could be, uh, uh, flyers, brochures, marketing things for a website. I'm out of ideas right now. Magazines, like y'all want to suddenly print a magazine, but a book of your photos or your illustrations, or uh, give me a hand here. Anyway, it's how you combine these programs to make things work in conjunction, okay, to get a final result. And if that's something you're interested in, there you go. That's your class. And otherwise, hi Moni, I am going to share my screen right now so that we can get started. All right. So, oops, Illustrator, here we go. Oh no, here, this is what I wanted to share. So once again, I'm blown away by you guys' participation. Thank you so much for just playing with Illustrator and getting so much done. I'm gonna start with this is the ending of last week, and I hadn't noticed that you had posted um this little pumpkin there. Let me put I need to put you guys on a different computer. Hold on. I've been taking this laptop to school to teach because the school one doesn't have some stuff I need. Anyway, never mind. But each time I come back here, I have to reset it for the second monitor. Um, there we go. Now you guys are a bit more visible, and I'm missing oh, the chat disappeared. Give me a second while I open up the chat again. Here, and I put it right there. Okay, and Moni, I put the link for the Padlet before you came. Do you have it handy? You need it again. Otherwise, I can post it again, but otherwise, when someone new arrives, you have to remind me I need to put the why is the chat not getting bigger? There we go. Sorry, I was having a issue with the chat being too small. All right.
I have it.
You have it. Yeah, good. All right. So here we go. Um, I have a cute little pumpkin guy that you made last week. Now, most of you guys don't, unless you've played around with some gradients, you don't know how to do gradients, you did that. But this in front is just one of those brushes, that you made some kind of grassy thing with. And of course, the pencils that we were using. So very cute. Then we got into all the people who have been trying to do the Paula's not here. Should I wait until she comes? She's always going to come. But anyway, you guys can look at the ones that people did who are not here, like Odessa. Here's Karen. Okay. Um, wow, Karen, look at that. So let me see one of the original ones. So let's here she's got here's the original one, even though it's crooked, so we can kind of see what it looks like because a lot of you attempted it. And it's a little bit funky. The things are a little bit off, so to say. It's not like perfect, and there's a reflection there that I told you guys to forget. So it's kind of, you know, kind of, I wouldn't say handmade, but it's not like perfectly exactly right. And you guys have done a great job with that. Making things be kind of off center, and this little ending here, which is just a little shapy thing that holds the light up. So really nice. And it seems that you remember from other classes how to pick up the right colors, which some of you guys are asking me about. So I'm going to get onto that, Stan. But remember that it didn't need to be exact. It's fine to do it exact. I love it. If you do it exact, then that shows that, you have control over the tools, but you also could do interpretations of. Um, oh, here comes Paula. Hi, Shelley. Thanks for joining us. And here we go. Here's Paula. Hi, Paula.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
No problem. I am going over all the work done by you guys, and I'm very impressed. And when I said that it could be a variation of, here's variation of, for example, right? And that's fine. Now, does that mean that you understood how to do the assignment less than someone who did that? No, it's fine. The idea is to create shapes, right? That are similar. But yet, if you have the skill to actually really do the stuff that getting complicated, then awesome. Um, Now, Moni over here is the first one who turned it in. There we go. And what I'm excited about, many of you guys actually did a lot of the work in the groups, which I would expect Moni to know, but some of you who wouldn't expect to know also were doing groups and stuff. So very nice there. But Moni, who's a bit more advanced, actually went ahead and even recreated those little shapes and shadows in the window and stuff. Whenever I zoom in on this app, I can't. And so Paula's here is like, how did you do that? So yes, you guys, you can comment on people's work, you can say things, you can ask, and ideally, if you guys check in, you might even respond, although it's hard to explain how do you do this? Basically you have to create shapes and put them back there, right? So we can talk about that now, but I appreciate that I noticed Paula answering people and asking people questions. So yeah, you guys can be interactive with this app. And then over here, Paula, who had been asking a couple questions in between, figured them out, and then she posted this one. And so this is her before, this is her after, which looks uh, amazingly similar. But most importantly, you also got a little reflection there. You also got a little reflection there in the window, and so maybe who cares if it's not exact? You got some stuff in there, and as I said, it's an interpretation. But actually, you did get some stuff, so I'm not sure if you figured it out later or what. Now, you did say that this took you hours. And yes, we're learning, okay? No, it shouldn't take you hours in the future, but once you got this under your belt, tell me how much time it would take you to do the exact same thing. Probably half of the time, the second time. And if you try it a third time, maybe one third of the time, and you try it a fourth time, and by at some point it'll begin like you'll know this. You know what I mean? But when you're learning, this is your first, completely out of the blue project. It's gonna take a while to figure things out. But I thoroughly appreciate knowing that you took 4 hours to make this job because I don't know how to explain it. All the trials and tribulations that you went through is making you ready to make your own, right? And again, I am more than happy to have you guys start making your own things. You don't need to make the things that I give you, but as I assign you certain ones that have progressively harder, more difficulty in them, that's the more that you're going to learn. I actually like, given that this original is a little bit funky, I kind of like that you made yours even funkier. You know what I'm trying to say? Because these lines are pretty straight, the life of it. And if you look at these guys, they're kind of crookedy and the windows are a little bit jaggedy, and I think it gives it even more life. So is it right or wrong? Of course it's right. It's whatever your interpretation for it is. The thing though, I would say, if you weren't trying to do that and you were trying to do it straight, then it's an issue and you ask me. Does that make sense what I'm saying? But if it's what you preferred to do, fine. If it's the only way you could get it done and you couldn't do it any different, that's when you have to bring it in as a question. Got it?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, my main question was like because I started doing like the windows in one way and then I switched to another way. So
Yeah.
my question was kind of like what would you do that would be like the most effective way to do it, not necessarily to do it like I don't
Mhm.
remember how I started doing it, but later then I did like a rectangle and
Mhm.
then I think I used the I don't even remember because that was last week. But I remember I tried different things and I was wondering what would be the most effective way to like duplex
Well,
windows.
the most effective way to make a window would be with a rectangle. You make one rectangle that's more safe,
Ah,
right? And then it depends. This could be four little rectangles that all have a stroke. So when you put them together, end up that way. Make sure that the
ah,
edge is good. You might make one white, yellowish rectangle, one little green rectangle, and then duplicate it one, two, three times, and there's your window, right? Um, and it would be all even. I have to say, I really like your windows a lot. But as I said, if it wasn't on purpose, then it seems to me that you drew your windows in some of these. So that's why it's
yeah.
a bit off kilter. And also, like, there's a way to make the line be perfectly straight versus have it be kind of wavy, which with a mouse is hard to make. So that's why I was asking. Personally, I think this is very charming. But if it's that you couldn't make the lines, then now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, we're going to do a little mini exercise and copy and repeat where in 2 seconds
Okay.
you can get something like that that's all
Okay.
even and well measured. Okay.
Okay.
That
Thank-
said, yeah, you seem to know how to make a perfect circle. My only thought would be that if you make things a little bit wonky in the windows on purpose, if you had done it on purpose, then
No.
maybe everything should be slightly wonky. Like the house edges might have to be also a little bit house slightly wonky, or the circles would have to be hand drawn, which is why I said what I said about the fact that if this is on purpose, that's great. If it's not on purpose, then, which seems to be your case, then we can talk about that. Okay.
Okay,
But
thank you.
yes, you could have done it either way. Um, so one thing that I love is that without having me explain it, you seem to have created your groups. So the it's brushing off on you by osmosis what you should be doing, I guess, because I didn't teach you that yet. And yet there you go with perfect little groups for each place. So well done. And for those who had, there's a couple of little loose pieces out in those. There you go. The heater's working, so I'm taking off my big old jacket and finally. Okay, let me turn that heater off too. There we go. I just blasted it at me and now it's like, oh, finally. I couldn't feel my fingers. Okay. So there we go. Let me remind me, and I want to continue commenting on people, but I do want to make sure that we talk about how to create those shapes and how to make them repeat them and to make it go faster. Okay, which are your questions? All right. And then over here, you seem to have figured this one out, which is basically it's when you import it, it has that X, but once you click away from it, the X disappears. And it's just what the kind of box that an imported shape was going to have.
Yeah, that was a bit annoying for me.
Yeah. But when you clicked away, that disappeared.
Okay.
It's because
Okay.
it's a place
So
layer.
it's normal. It's not something that I should have clicked or okay.
No, 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 it's fine. Okay, and then we have Odessa, who again is not here, so I'm going to move on up here to to Vera, um, which I'm loving. Look at, see, this is an interpretation of a bunny, and I love it. So this is the original bunny, and this is Vera's interpretation. And I love your little hearts, and you put some more little greenies there. It's great. You're totally getting an absolute command of this of the tools and the project. Now here you mentioned, what was your comment? You made a comment. The rainbow didn't go so well. I need to learn to measure the rectangles more correctly before I start. So, um, this is the original. This is the copy. Now, for those of you who are wondering about colors, see how she has the exact same colors. Now, that said, this with the exercise that I'm going to show for Paula's question about how to get the windows replicated and stuff like that. With that, we can then create this one too. Okay, Vera? So I'm going to show you a different way to create these rectangles. But one thing I want everyone to notice is that over here, let me see how big I can go there. that in between these lines, so the colors are perfect, and that's because I'll teach you how to pick up colors, but they're almost perfect. One of these is a little bit off, but whatever, it's colors that they had. But it looks like you drew lines in between these rectangles, right? And the reason I know is because you have that extra space under one of them. Otherwise, I might have, and then here it's a little bit not exactly right. So, so in this case, what I would have done is definitely do more of a and one way to do this, of course, is oh, got it. Thank you, Shelley. Um, I would have thought that these are just rectangles that you copy paste one after the other. But one thing that Vera noticed is if you look at them, they are not. See that? And I was surprised by that. I just assumed that these were just so, like, why did she do this by hand? And so you forced me to pay attention to this one and to notice that these are not actually rectangles. Now, to say the truth, I wasn't expecting this to be a piece to be copied. This was just for me to show you colors and to show you when I get into Photoshop to see how colors change. So I was surprised to see it. And actually, I was surprised to discover that these are probably somebody painted. I mean, I don't know. Now it makes me think, what is this? Because clearly this is not yawn chunk rectangle. But that said, if you do create each one as its individual piece, which I'm not sure if you did here because the black line conceals the edges, um, I would still, if you're going to make these lines on top like you did, which is what I think you did, and I only noticed it because in the purple that it was off is what I noticed it. And that's when I went back to this one, and that's when I began to look more closely and notice that they weren't exact shapes. It took me seeing that to notice. Um, I would say that the color of the stroke would have to be either lighter toned, or in my case, I think that my real thought originally was that you should put a little soft stroke on everything instead of having to draw lines on top of them.
I should have reduced the opacity because I didn't notice those lines till after I got started
Hmm.
and then put them in over the top. And I wasn't sure what to do to get it as light as the original.
Yeah, and the thing is, you guys, if you and I only noticed this again after I saw you take this on as a project, that it's one thing you could put on a little tiny gray stroke on everything and it might work. But if you actually really try to imitate the real thing, each one of these little lines is a little bit of a different color. You see that? So the solution might in fact be that you have a green rectangle with the exact same tone of green as a stroke, but then, like you're saying, either reduce the opacity, and then when they overlap with the yellow one from here, and you have them overlap a teensy bit, then they become this little melded tone. You know what I mean? So if you want to get exactitude, that might be a solution we'd have to test. I just saw this as a lot of bars next to each other, and I had no notion that these were not. See how that seems like crooked. So anyway, you made me look at this in a way that I had never even thought of looking at it. But yeah, definitely if you're going to go the way you went, you would have to have either the strokes have much less opacity or originally start them being a little bit grayish toned. Um, and most importantly, by the same token of what I'm going to teach for the windows for the question of how to make a fast duplication and have them all be in the same position, I would grab all these strokes and see how they end and start a little bit at different heights. You see it more at the top there and see how these are shorter. So basically they should all be aligned. They should be the same one that you copy paste versus drawing them each time and putting them a little bit in a different places. Okay. So when we work on as soon as we get back into Illustrator and we work on that, maybe that's something you want to grab these strokes and do something different. Now, are they separate? Do you have all the stroke? Yeah, you have the black lines right there. So that'll be easy to do because you have them all nicely set up. You'll be able to grab all these black lines and just adjust them, align them. And if perchance you did draw them one by one and they are not the same size, then you can delete all of them except for one and then pull them out and I'll show you how, and then you can get them all set in rather quickly and all nicely aligned. So we're gonna practice that, and you could come and see what's the best way for you to work on this one. All right, and then you did the houses also, and I couldn't really understand your question about the circle. Because anyway, here's the original, here's the copy, and you had a question about the very nicely done again, but you said
The pole is over on the left, on the original, the pole is over the circle. And when I try to do
oh,
that,
okay, in the stack, I see what you mean. It should be on top, but you couldn't find this circle in your layers.
right,
But you're having it selected. So if it's selected, guys, she has, see how the one that's selected is one you couldn't find, right?
yes,
All right, so there's one very big tell, which is when something is selected in your layers, it'll have a little box. So why are they two blue boxes here? Well, she made a group, and for some of you guys who haven't done groups yet, I'm going to go through that today. She made a group called Green Moons, and so within that group, this is that circle because it has a little blue box. So the fact that if it weren't selected, I wouldn't know which one it is. It could be that one, it could be this one, it could be this one. But since it's got the blue box, it tells me it's that one. And why is the second box there? Because that's the group that holds it. So within this group, a tiny little blue box, that one, the bigger box, is the one that's that grid, that's that circle. Does that make sense? Does that
right.
answer your question, Vera?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I couldn't, maybe my question should have been about the pole because I couldn't get that pole over the green
Okay, so you couldn't
moon.
find the pole. Well, I'm seeing this pole and this pole. You have two poles total, and I'm seeing them both over here. I'm seeing two
Okay,
over here. So one of those should it's harder to have them be over the circles, the moons, because they are below the moon. So they need to be brought above on top. So this should go above this one for whichever moon that one is. And then the other one has to be taken out of this group called light and taken up above that one. I have a feeling that maybe under this light, you probably have another one. So each one has its own circle. So I would think that this one of these has to go up there. Does that make sense?
yes.
Um,
Okay, common sense.
Reorganize. Now, if you have this is one light with its own circle and moon, it seems to me that maybe, and I can't, this was, unless you click on them, I can't tell if this moon, and I guess the light that's inside of the light, the little circle, pink circle, let's say, I can't tell if you have one on top of the other and you just have two of them there because I don't see another one, right? Or if this is for everyone. I can't tell if one circle is here and one circle is there that I just don't see it because in the layers, all you see is the shape, but I can't tell if they are one on top of the other, thus hiding themselves, right? Or if one is here, one is there, I'll still see them as a circle, right? So this is a matter of clicking on this little circle here to see, oh, that one will light up with handles and clicking on that one. And if that same one light up with handles, that means you've got two on top of the other. But if you click on the other one and something back here lights up, then you've got two separate ones. Then they should be in a different group, belong to a different light. So it occurs to me, since you do have one and two lights, that this is probably one and this is the second one, and that you need to maybe get rid of one of these and get rid of one of these poles, or when you open the second light, uh, do the same. And or if these green orbs are extra, then you'll never get those above that unless the pole goes there, right? So I would almost think that these need to be turned off. The green moons need to be turned off. And then this lights has each one its own little pole, and you just restack in orders and then you'll get your two lights. Are there three? No. Oh, there's three. Okay, so you should have one more here. Okay. So I'll let you work on that and reorganize that. And if you have any other questions about that, let me know. But otherwise, it's
No,
looking
thank you. That
beautiful.
helped.
Cool. And then Stan, you also did the work, and this is how I would do the work. I love it in that he's creating the parts and pieces, right? and putting them all together and then dragging them into the background, right? I would go in here and I'd be like working on the little bits and pieces. I don't know why, because it's probably just as fine to do it in there. But maybe this is how I've been teaching it, where I teach you how to make different shapes and I've been showing you how to do the parts and pieces. And also then it helps you go, okay, I need one light there, make a copy, one light there, one light there. You know, when things have to be identical, it's a great way to do that. I'm gonna zoom in a minute to the it, but you did have a question at the end, where to locate. Oh, you were the one who had asked me about the colors. So yes, we'll learn about that. But other than that, here we go. So this is his interpretation of that with the colors that he found in the tools, in the default colors. And here's his different attempts at moons. And he made I'm sorry, he made all the house shapes. He made all the parts and pieces of windows. And then when he's ready, up, on the light, and then when he's ready, up there they will go. So you're just having, if you're having just color questions, then we'll deal with those. And meanwhile, great job on the parts and pieces. Now I don't see yet your layer here, the toolbar, the what do you call it? This part. I don't see this here in your screenshot. So what I can't tell if these are all scattered around or if they're nicely grouped, I can't tell. So if you have that and you want to add it to the picture, when you want to add more pictures to one thing, instead of having two separate ones, what Paula did here is that she put the top stuff here, that she did a big screenshot, but then she added the individual parts and pieces as if she were replying. So I was adding a comment. So that's a good way to show me more than one thing in one post. If you want to like say comment and then give me a little screenshot of your layers and stuff, that would help see what we need to, if we need to work on learning about organizing and stuff like that. Okay. But awesome. And then Sarah, yeah, I wrote back, let's check on that in class because I can't tell until you show me your shape to see what's happening with your
For whatever reason, when I opened it today, I have colors again.
yeah. Oh, today you have colors.
Yeah, like I had a shape and it gave
Oh,
me lots of options
so
for colors.
one thing I'm noticing, okay, so then you had it set in some outline view or something. I can't tell.
You know,
Uh,
I have to say that's happened with me as well, that there's times when all of a sudden everything, all my swatches, even the regular ones, everything's gone.
Well, there's a
And
couple of views that you can do up at the top, and one of them kind of turns it into like outlines or shapes, and maybe that's no, because this wouldn't be outlines. We can test on a few of those, but yeah, that's interesting. Um, unless we want to explore and figure it out. But since now it's in color, we can't really explore much. So I don't really have an answer. Maybe that's something to Google and see. Because if you're saying that happens to you too, Moni, and you're saying it happened to you and now it's gone, that's the issue. It's that now it's gone. Clearly, it's some click or some setting that turns it into that somehow by you either turned it off again or when you reopened it was back to default. I don't know. Um, that said, I do have a comment to say here that I would say is wrong, not to make it right or wrong, but, and I'll explain why I'm saying it's wrong. And it's that for the parts and pieces, you made different layers. Now, I haven't taught groups yet. So when you've been seeing all this stuff that people have been doing, you might have thought, oh, these are different layers, but these are not. So I'm going to go over that. This is one layer with different groups. Now, what that means is that she can grab this little guy and move it up there, move that over here, just kind of have it be in different places in different ways, versus when they are different layers, they're not connected. These things don't interact with each other. It's a different kind of organization. It's not like either or. Now, if you were to make a completely different a creature, which these are very much, tree and house and whatever, you could have them as different layers. I mean, technically, yes. But if you were now to want to put a gradient over three of them and, make sure that all the trees are on the same one, you could do them. So it's not, that's why I wanted to say it's not wrong. It is definitely not the best way for a cohesive picture to come together later. And maybe I don't have a particular reason why not right now, but more of a long term, let's make these into groups. We're going to talk about that and then leave different layers for different, either for a whole different, project. Over here, Vera has two layers. One is the bunny and one is the stripes. You see that? So one layer with the one layer and another layer. She could call it bunny and stripes. But inside that layer, she has a group for grass, a group for the hearts, a group for the branches, right? So it's two different projects in the same file, which you can do, or you could just have a different file for each project, right? I mean, it's all choices and stuff like that. It's fine to have it either way, but this one is going to cause you more issues later. But I'm glad that you got the colors back. And yes, I think I've talked about the project that everyone who is here submitted. Karen, I didn't miss one of yours, right? No, we already talked about yours. It's looking great.
Yeah, and I tried to do an organized thing with the layers and groups, but I messed it up. But it's great that you're
Oh,
going to be teaching us today.
if you want to put in a screenshot and put it in, click add comment and then post it in there. You can do that so we can see where it's now and where it's going.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't have to, but that would help. See, I wouldn't know the difference, but the difference is when you're starting to find and try to look for something like Vera, who couldn't find a poll or something. It's easier when things are organized from the beginning. And then Odessa posted 3 things, but she's not here, so we're gonna move on. Yes, Stan.
Um, this is just a simple question about layers, and maybe you'll cover it. But like, say this project, as you're proceeding, like with house number 1, with the window, the door, the house itself, is that when you start setting up the layers for it? Is there ever a time you would go back and do it after the fact?
I think that the way, not layers, I would say set one. This whole project should have one layer. So when you said layers, so this house should be one layer. But in your case in particular, it's a great time to ask because you have the parts and pieces assembled, like a builder who's bought all his wood and his tiles. I love that. And now what you can do is as you assemble one house with all its parts and pieces, because you might be repeating this window, you have to repeat it a few times. It's not exactly the same. This one repeats 2 or 3 times. So they're not all exact windows, so there's not that much repetition. But once you assemble one house, you would create that one house as one group. Then you would assemble the next one. It would be another group. The next one, your group, call them house 1, 2, 3, or left to right, or whatever you're going to call them. So like this one's partly assembled or partially or almost assembled. I can't tell. I would have to go in here and see. Then you would select that. You would create the little parts and pieces for this light, and you would then turn it into a group. So that's what I'm going to show you that right now. So by the time you're done, when you have to put 2 of these, you put one there and you copy and put another one there. Each one will be its own little group, and then you'll have your base pieces here, and then you'll put a little copy of 1, 2, there's 3 of them. Put a third one, and then for the third one, you'll take out the little circle because it's similar, maybe add a little line, whatever it might be to make the third one be a little bit different. But you might not, because if you look at them closely, they're not really exactly right. Now, I mean, they're not exactly identical. They're a little bit off. So if you're trying to make them be the same ones, that's fine. That's your choice. But if you're trying to make it to be a slightly more whimsical, a little bit off, then you would still start with the one and you put that one here and you modify a little bit. Then you grab and you copy one here and you modify it a little bit so that they end up being the same piece, but slightly different. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we're gonna start now working on all the grouping and all of that, and also on the repetition of shapes and objects to make them be the same. Now, I wanted to say that Odessa has a lot of work here, and I wanted to talk to her in particular. But there's one thing I want everyone to know. In these flowers, this is an example of a shape that shouldn't technically have a fill that has a fill, so she probably made this curve with a line or something like that, but gave it a fill. The only reason I'm saying that is because the side over here isn't handleable. Like if you were to want to make it have a different shape, and as long as that's a choice, that's one thing. But if you are trying to make this shape have a different shape or, finish into a different leaf shape or even curl up or whatever, you have no control over that ending because this is just a fill between the beginning of one and ending on another because it's an open shape. Does that make sense? Versus if it's a closed shape, then you can manipulate the entire shape of this leaf. But then you'd have to have a stroke over the whole thing. So, or you can have a stroke on none of it. But by having this be the shape, which is a line, and the fact that there's no stroke here, that's because this is not a closed shape where you took a stroke off of one side. That's not something you can do in Illustrator. If the shape is closed, you have to have a stroke over the whole thing or none, but you can't have zero stroke. Can you fake it? Can you put another little green rectangle over that stroke so that it looks like it doesn't have a stroke? Da, 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 da. Yeah, you can fake it. But this is an indication of a line that is an open-ended shape where you apply a fill and then the fill just goes from end to end. Boom, boom. There's no way to have it take on any shape that you want it to take. It'll be just whatever it is. Okay. And then here she's mentioned that she brought to bring one leaf forward on the right, causing it to the shape to be interrupted by the line. And so she's talking a little bit about that stuff, but she's not here, so I'm gonna stop with that until she comes here, or maybe next week if she doesn't come here today. All right. Oh, and then Gary is working on his. Oh, this is a new. Thank you for posting, Gary.
Sorry, yeah. Still working on it.
No, that's fine. So now you're working on your stuff. That's great, and you're starting with groups and stuff. So well done. Now I do see here a layer one, and then I see that these are all now another indication that these are layers, which is what I don't want you to do. And I kind of told you, I shot you out and said, guys, do this as homework. So of course you guys are making the logical assumption that these should be layers, especially when I was showing you the other pieces, but these shouldn't be layers, they should be groups. So when we talk about this,
Okay.
you can grab this and bring it into layer one and put it, or maybe layer one in this case can be the linked file, like on the one side, and then all of this would be layer two as individual groups. Okay. That makes sense. Maybe as a
Mhm.
have the sample on one layer because you're not
I
going to
think that
anymore.
was another artboard, layer one, the original image.
Yeah, but art
Okay.
are not equivalent to layers. It could be or it couldn't. It doesn't need to be. So
Okay.
let me go back to, here's an example. I think Vera, who has two projects. Where's Vera's again? Oh, over here. So she has two layers, but she has four artboards. See that? So layers don't need to be, it doesn't correspond to an artboard. It's, in this case, she could have had one layer for the sample and one layer for the piece, but she chose to have one layer for sample and piece and the second layer for sample and piece, and that's fine. Layers and artboards don't correspond to each other. Sometimes they do. If she had chosen to put it that way or put four different projects in here, but they don't necessarily have to. Okay. More importantly, if you guys, something I'm going to say, if you take the digital sign techniques class, which some of you will take, some of you won't. But one thing I explain is when you put this piece together, say that this is going to be a happy Valentine's card, for example, right? Or a poster or something. Then you might have some text that say happy Valentine's, and then you might have, you know, another page here because it's a card and it's the inside of the card and it says something else in there. So one typical thing to use layers in, not so much in Illustrator, but in InDesign, which is the program where you put these things together, would be to have a layer for all of the graphics, which would be this, and have another layer with like the text, to have another layer with a layout of the piece, the guidelines and things like that. So like the different parts and pieces of the element so that then you can lock an entire layer while you work on the text and not have to worry about, you know, moving the little hearts or stuff like that. So that would be a technical reason to use layers. Does that make sense? But it's your choice how you do it. The only one that I recommend not doing, which in the case of Sarah and Gary, is to make layers just for different objects. Now, okay, how can you tell there's many ways you can tell, but one quick reason you can tell that these are different layers is see how on the left side of this, there's a different color little line. And let me take you to Sarah's. See how there's house number 2 is one layer and there's this blue line. Moon is another layer and it's red, and house number 1 is green. So I'm going to show you now in a second what happens. I'm going to go into Illustrator right now. So let's all head into Illustrator. I'm going to show you what those lines do or represent. So let's go ahead and start with Illustrator. Let's click on a new file. And let's go with our good old recent custom, because it's going to be the 5x5 with 4 artboards. Now, if you have created something different as your beginning one, then go back to print and set up your 5x5x4, and then let's create. All right. So over here on the left side, we have our layers. Let's open our layers. And as you can see, the layer 1, which is the one that is the default setting, has a little blue line there. And let's go ahead, everyone, let's make a good old rectangle, our fun little beginning shape. We're going to make it, actually, let me Command Z or Control Z. It's going to be a bit easier to see even with a circle. So let's make a circle. And let's give it a fill and a stroke of some kind or another. I try to keep the strokes not blue so that they don't overlap with bounding boxes and that kind of thing, just for when we're learning. Not that in your life you don't have to have a blue stroke ever. It's just, and I'm going to make it a big fatty again, just so that I can see that line inside. And now I'm going to zoom in so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so when everyone's there, it's a basic circle with whatever colors. Now, on the same artboard, just to blow your minds, I'm going to make another layer. Let's see. I'm going to make another layer, go way down here at the bottom of the layers. I'm going to click on layers. Now, this is not what I recommend doing, but I'm going to show you something about layers, okay? So I've created a new layer, layer 2. See that? Layer 1, layer 2. Let's go back to layer 1. If I open it up, there's my little only shape I have. Let's copy it with the Command C or Control C, or go up to Edit Copy, whichever way you like to copy things for now. Or what was the way I just taught you how to copy the other day? I taught you a quick way to copy. Who remembers? And this is something we'll build upon, because I'm going to be building upon this little detail later today. So who remembers?
Use the Alt key.
Yeah, so let me head over to the keyboard, and at the bottom you will have the Alt or Option Alt for the PC users, Option for Mac users, and I can just hold it, my mouse, when I'm hovering over something, hold that key down, you can drag, and here comes the second one. So that's a copy. Okay. Now, when I copied it, no matter how I would have copied and pasted, whichever system of the 3 that I told you, you would have ended up with 2 shapes next to each other, and they would be in the same layer. Okay. Now, if I want it to be on a separate layer, there's no way to change layers in here. I would have to do it over here. I'm going to grab one of these and I'm going to drag it up and drop it into layer 2. So now we have, this one is in layer 1 and this one is in layer 2. So once you have that, give me a yes, and then I'm going to make a point to show you some stuff about this.
I can't get it up there.
Okay, so just grab it from the name, not from other parts of it, just from like this name area or even from the thumbnail. And then you can just drag it up and drop it. And when you see the layer 2 word light up, you can let go. And then it'll fall inside of layer 2. Did that work, Vera?
No,
Go ahead, share your screen. Let me see what's happening. Because sometimes since layers and groups are different, it might, you don't want to share your screen. Perfect.
all right, when I try to grab it from the word,
Yeah, so open your layer. It's just that it's
Oh.
probably there. You're just not seeing.
here,
Yeah,
okay,
there it is. It was
all
there.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Cool.
thank you.
Karen, before I share my screen, in case it's something you need to share, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I don't know, mine's all messed up. Let me share my screen with you.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Okay. So the first thing that's happening is probably similar to what was happening to Vera is that the second layer, when it get created, it's closed. So go ahead
Yeah.
and click on that little arrow so it opens up. Okay, so good. So you had it, you just have an extra, you have this thing here called a path.
Now, why do I have a path thing? I don't know how that invented itself.
It's that little tiny thing. You see how it's selected, you guys? See how it's selected here? So if something is selected there, when you look over here, it'll have handles and it looks like there's that little thing right there. And it's probably
I
you
can just get rid of that thing.
hit the delete key, yeah, because it's already selected and hit the delete key and there it is.
Kill it, okay.
Now it's gone. Okay.
Now, I don't know why my layer 2 doesn't have,
Don't worry, it'll come. Let me just show you something about layers right now, and that'll work. So let me just share, because now that you're at the same place and everyone else is there, let me just keep sharing, and we shall now see what we shall see. Okay, so here I go. All right, so the first thing that, oh, hold on, I'm getting one of those little wheels of death there. No, something's fine now. Okay. Back to Illustrator. All right. So the first thing I want to show you guys is that on the left side over here, the first one that we made, and if you guys want to change the color to distinguish which one you have, you maybe change the color fill just so that there's less confusion. But this doesn't matter. It's not about the color of the image, but that might help you if this was confusing at all, if you see it in two different colors. But the thing I want you to look at is the following. See how layer 1 has these blue lines next to it, and layer 2 has red lines next to it? Now look at the bounding box of my pink shape in layer 1, and now look at the bounding box of my red shape in layer 2, and the path color. You see that? That tells you it's on a separate layer. Okay. Even though, can you put them all and work on them together like Karen did, Sarah did, making them part of her house and whatever? Yes, you can. But there's going to be a time and place. You'll see this later today, Sarah, and anyone who wasn't very clear about layers and or groups, because I haven't explained groups yet, that when you want to say that this is the tree, and I'm going to make the trunk, and I'm going to make that little internal circle or whatever that's in there. If one piece is on one layer and another piece is on another layer, you won't be able to group them. They'll end up in one different layer. Like you just can't. You have to work with the elements in one layer separately from the elements in another layer. Now, if you correctly made each layer, each individual bit an item like Sarah did, technically, can you work with it that way? Yes, you can. But it's unnecessary. And so now instead of showing you what's wrong, which is what I'm saying, let me show you the right way, and then you can still choose things that are, but the problem is going to be when you're trying to do things that are across the board for any reason. You want an effect to take place across a few different things when they're in different groups, you won't be able to, because when they're in different layers, you won't be able to, because they act as different entities. Okay. Even though physically they look like they could be together.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, just notice that if I make a third layer, let me make a third layer, and I'm going to drag this over, and then I'm going to give it a different color just so that we have a different
When would I want to, I understand when we wouldn't want, but for what I would use multiple layers.
as I said, I see how, by the way, I just look at my third one that says green over there and see how now I have a green outline, out box, and a green path, and everything is green versus this one's red, this one's blue. So that gives you an inkling. If you're ever wondering what layer is this on, they are all identical. Well, just look at the colors of the bounding boxes, and you can see then that anything that's red will be in there and everything that's green will be in there. Does that make sense? Just saying as another clue as to what layer your things are on. When would you want to use layers? In Illustrator, I rarely use layers unless it's a different design. But sorry, in Illustrator, in InDesign, I do use some layers sometimes. Many times, one way to use a layer might be like your template, so to say, the one that you were copying from can be in one layer separate from the others. It's a matter of choice. For the most part, I don't use layers, even if the illustration is complicated. I use groups. So that's my answer. So if you want to keep this as a sample and give me some hit one of these so you see a different color bounding box, and do a little screenshot of that, and let's put that in our, have this be our first lesson of the day. Okay. We're going to head over to the Padlet. I'm going to give you the Padlet link one more time. And let's post the, if you create multiple layers, not necessary, but if you do, then each layer, bounding boxes, paths, guides, etc., will have a different color. And it's not that easy to see in this screenshot, because I notice that when I take a screenshot, the bounding box always disappears. You can see it in the path, but the bounding box, I don't know why, when I go do the screenshot right now, the bounding box just kind of goes away. So it doesn't stay showing itself. Maybe if I do, yeah. Anyway, okay. So that's all I wanted to show in this one. So we can save this and call it layers, but I don't really want to spend much more time on this one because it already has layers, which isn't the way I want to continue. So let's do Command or Control S. Call this one layers example or something like that. And let's save that. And then we're going to create a new file. So we can close that one. And I'm going to create a new file, which for people who like shortcuts, Command N, but otherwise click on New File and create again. And we're going to start from scratch. And now we're going to move on with the conversation about groups and layers and duplicating and making things happen quickly, quicklier. All right. So give me a yes when you're here. Let me clean your answers. If you're all saved, posted, and back up with a new clean file, give me a good old yes. All right. Vera, you ready? Let me see who's missing. Karen, you ready? You need a hand with something, or is all good? Karen? Karen, do you need some help with something, or are you good?
I was just posting something to tablet and
Okay.
Padlet or whatever, and then I
Okay.
got to create, you want us to create a whole new for
Just a new
artboards,
document.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry, being slow here.
Oh, that's fine. All right. So, um, the answer to just one quick answer to a question that Stan had about colors. This isn't about creating colors yet, but if you didn't create the colors, how did everyone get the exact same colors? So this is going to be a quick answer. Let me show you. Let's all go file, place that image. Let's go place that same image that you guys have been working on. And some of you guys didn't work on it, in which case go find it. I believe it was called House. And if not, you can do this with any image that's here. It doesn't need to be that one, but it's also a good practice for those of you who didn't do it yet to know how to bring in an image. So you said file, place, and then you go find it. And then over here, instead of just clicking, we're going to click and drag until it fits the right size. So, and this is the answer also to Paula's initial question, why that X and how do you get rid of it? Well, if you click away, it goes away, right? But when you click on it, it's there. It just indicates that this is a placed file. It's not an Illustrator file. I can't go in there and tweak the paths of this house to make it work because it's not vectors. This is a pixel file. It's a PNG. If you look at the file that we brought in here, it's an illustration made out of pixels. It's a Photoshop, so to say, type of file. So you cannot grab the line of this circle and move it over. Does that make sense? It's a piece in and of itself. And when you hover over it, that's what it's telling you. And in fact, something you'll learn much more in the digital design techniques class, but this is a linked file. If you look in the properties, it says linked file. It is linked, it is not embedded, so you can't work on it at all. You can't do anything to it. You can just look at it, okay? And that's why every time you click on it, it has an X because it's basically going, okay, I'm placed, I'm linked, and nope, you can't touch me, basically is what it's saying. So that's one thing. But also, what if I want to pick up the colors on this thing? Can I? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little box in here, and I want it to have the same color as something that's here. Well, I'm going to go pick up the eyedropper right down there, or the letter I for the eyedropper, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and click on that color, or this color, or this color, or this color, or this color, which is how people picked up the exact colors. Does that make sense, Stan? It's the eyedropper. Now, if you were to make your own, we're going to have a conversation about color. I'm not going to not have it. I'm just not going to have it right now. Okay, this is just how people made it be the exact same color, which you can go do with yours, or you can like you were doing, or like Odessa was doing, you can have your own interpretation of the colors, right? There's no need to have it be the same colors, but if you were trying to do it, that's how you would do it. Okay, now just again, without going deeply into the conversation of colors, each time I clicked into each one of these, the colors change, they disappear. So if you have to make another house that way, do you need to grab the eyedropper and sample the house again? Well, that would be a solution. Or you can make each color sit and stay as its own color in your swatches. So just really quickly, we're going to do that, and then we're going to leave the rest of the conversation for when I work more with colors. But I can head over here to this fill area. First of all, this, which is new to Illustrator, all the ones that I've been clicking up are showing up there as recent colors. So if I now wanted to color this one green, but say I'm zoomed in, right? And so I'm not seeing, say that I've zoomed myself in to the point that I'm working with this, and I'm not seeing that one to go sample it, but I want to go make it green. Well, I could have them there, so I could go click on one of these greens to make it green because they are there, right? But they're only going to be there temporarily, meaning earlier I had those and now I have these because I just clicked on them. But if I keep clicking and clicking, each time I click on one, the rest begin to disappear. This is kind of like a scroll, like in social media where things scroll out of the way. So at some point they'll scroll out and you won't have them anymore. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So it's not like that's permanent. So if I really wanted to make this a permanent color to be a new swatch, then I would have to go down to this little plus sign like that, and then it'll bring up stuff. We'll deal with that later. Just say okay to that, and now you have a new little swatch that's permanent. that won't go away with that color. Does that make sense? So then you can go to the pink one and make a plus sign, say okay to that. And now you have, these are actually permanent. You won't have, they won't be disappearing. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay.
Yes.
So if that worked for you and you're all followed through with getting those colors off of the original, and then what's new to a lot of you guys, even if you've been taking this class, is this recent colors. This only showed up in a version a few months ago. I can't really tell when, but an update from a few months ago, the recent colors appeared, which is really, really nice. I like having that there. That was such an easy one to put in there, and it was a missing. So now you can be playing around with colors, and until you're really sure with the one you want, you don't necessarily need to make it its own swatch. But all the ones you've been going back and forth on, you can just go, well, did I like this one more than I like that one? Let me see that one or that one. Okay, that one. Okay, this is the one it's going to be. Okay, let's make a swatch out of that one. You know what I mean? So it's kind of fun to have it there. Anyway, now I'm gonna zoom out, and that's it. That's all I'm gonna say for colors right now. So we don't necessarily have to do a screenshot of that. It was just showing you something quick. But what I want us to do now is let's leave that there, because if the idea is to try to show you how to imitate these windows and stuff, it might not be a bad idea to leave it there. Now, I want you guys to understand that this might or not have been a precise circle in the past. I don't know. This is clearly something kind of, even if they made it precise, they jiggled it out because it's not a perfect circle. But also, this is a screenshot of an illustration, and it might be all jiggy jaggy, which is why it looks a bit more jaggy than it might normally be. Yet some of the windows, like this one, looks a bit more, how to say, mechanical made, where it's more exact. But once you start so the fact that you're seeing these little edges and kind of weird things into it, at some point you could think that you could be confused whether if it's the art or if it's the JPEG that is so expanded. I venture to say that this is on purpose, because you wouldn't have such uneven steps, or you wouldn't have all of this kind of junky thing there if it weren't on purpose. You would have some of this pixelation, but if it's a perfect circle, it would be pixelation on a perfect circle. I think this is pretty much either mostly hand-drawn or hand-drawn along a line that makes it look pretty square. But right now, I'm not going to address whether it's hand-drawn or not, because for that, what you would have to do is just hand draw it. Instead, I'm going to show you how to do this if this were squares, or you're trying to make a repetitive pattern that is precise, okay? And then you can create in the future one rectangle that's not precise, and then copy that one, and then the whole thing will look a bit wonky. But for now, I'm going to have us make it look as if it had to be rectangles. Okay, so let's head over here to the second page. And this applies also to Vera's lines, and to many other projects I'm sure that you guys have. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and click and drag and make a little shape, whichever. There, it's a bit off of it's not really a square, it's a rectangle. It doesn't matter what size rectangle it is. Okay, and now with this rectangle, if I just watch me for a second, I'm going to zoom in a bit to see if you can just watch my screen. I'm going to hover over this thing and hold the Option key over it, or Alt if you're on a PC. And when I drag it out to make the copy, right? Do you see that those pink lines that are kind of appearing and disappearing on the side? So there's one that appears that it went away. Then there's that thing there that's appearing on the right side, then it's going away. Now there's another one right there in the middle, and then it's going away. You see what I mean by those flashing pink lines? Those are called smart guides. And the smart guides are there to tell you, boom, you have it in the right spot. with respect to another object, or you have it on the edge. And so watch what's happening. When I move one or two of these with respect to the other, and again, it might be easier to give two colors. That way I can say the pink one or the green one. So that's the only reason. You don't need to have them be two colors, but then I'm going to say when I move this pink one in order to make sure that it is exactly on top of the green one, I can eyeball it, or I can wait, boom, for that smart guide to tell me the center of that bottom rectangle is in line with the center of the top rectangle. And when I let go, I know that they are perfectly aligned. Does that make sense? Now,
It makes sense on yours, but my smart guides are not showing up.
okay, it's
Like to
possible that you have
view,
to turn off. Go up to view,
view guides.
guides, and then
I have hide guides, unlock guides, make guides, make guides.
so where are the smart guides?
But when I click make guides, then I get a light green line with
It's not,
no color in it.
it's not make guides. Here, down here, smart guides. Down here, it needs to be turned on.
Okay, now I see it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if someone wasn't seeing the pink lines, that's how you turn them on. Now, if you clicked on them when we did that and clicked on them because you said, oh, I found it, now there's no smart guides. So when you click on something, you turn it on, you click on it again, you turn it off. So see how there's no check mark on it now? So I have to go back and turn it on. Okay, there we go. So now the smart guides should be there. Okay, and notice that as I'm moving it, I'm also being told, like right there, I'm holding it, and like I had it off center, right? So when I go and put it in there, if I don't let go, it's showing me where the midpoint is intersecting with the midpoint of the top one. Once I let go, I know without having to test it that these are exactly right. Now, if I would want to test it, I could put an actual guide that I drag out right now. To do that, we need rulers. So in the past, I've had you guys turn on rulers. Do you remember how to do that? Does anyone remember the shortcut for turning on a ruler on every computer program on Earth? What on Earth?
Option R.
R or Control R for PCers. And now I have rulers. And to get a guide, if I were to want to test whether this truly is right on top of each other, I could go to this ruler, put my tip of my mouse in there, click and just drag out this line, and then click right there on the edge, and it's going to do a little snap. That last little eighth of an inch is going to go plunk, snap. And guess what? Yep, that is exactly right. Now, if I don't want it there and I want to move it and yours doesn't move, if you grab it and it doesn't move, you might have locked guides. So make sure that when you go over here to grids that the lock guides is turned off, because if I click on it to turn it on, now that guide that I dropped is untouchable. Okay, so you can bring out a guide, but once it's there and you dropped it, it's fixed. It won't move again. So you need to go up to view guides and unlock guides. Then you can grab a guide and you can move it again. Okay. So many times when we need to do a grid pattern, we will create guides to make a grid pattern. But for the most part, unless we're trying to do something really mathematically exact, we don't need these guides. So how do we get rid of them if we don't want them? You just either select it and hit the delete key. That's one way. And oh, by the way, let me undo that because I want to show you in your layers, the guides are appearing as an object. Okay. You can either select it and hit the delete key, or you can grab it and stash it back into the ruler. Boom. Oops. Stash it all the way back into the ruler. So you can bring it out of the ruler and stash it back in there. That's the only way you could do it before. Or you can select it and now you can delete it. Now, for many years, you've been able to do that, but for many, many, many years, the only way to get rid of a guide, and you can take one from the top and one from the side. And then if you have mathematically figured out where it needs to be, now you grab your shape and you snap it to the guides. And it's pretty cool to have a guide, snap it, and then now you don't have to worry about smart guides. So depending if you're creating something that has to be very precise and it has areas that need to be a certain way. You can't go over that edge, or then a guide is the way to go. You mark yourself a guide. Like if you need a layout on your page to be very precise, then you got to lay out guides. Now, once you've laid out your guides, you better lock the guides. That way you don't mistakenly move the guide around, right? So why would you want it to be locked? Because if this were to be, you have to have, two columns that are, a certain size away from each other. And that's exactly where they have to be. And now I'm just throwing anything out. Then you would do that, and then you have it placed in the exact, let's make a third one. And next thing you know is you have one over there and you have one over here, and say that that's where they had to be, then that's good. But unless you have that kind of need for precision, then guides probably aren't the way to go. So, by the way, this would be something that I would like a screenshot of, especially with the layers, so that you can see that the guides appear in the layers. And when we start working with groups, yes, you can group your layers. And yes, by the way, let me clarify, this is a good example of when someone said, when would you use another layer? Well, for example, a good reason to use another layer is to put all your guides in a different layer. And then you can just keep them separate from your illustration. That would be an example, right? So then you would have to go up, make a new layer, and then create your guides in that new layer, call it the layer guides, and then that could be there as a pattern to help you design, but you can just ignore it when you don't want it. But I'm not going to have us create layers right now. I'm just showing you guides. Let's do a little screenshot of guides and post that really quickly, and then we'll move on. So layers help when you have to create a specific layout or a pattern, anything that has to be mathematically precise. Show rulers.
So you meant guide. Oops, sorry.
What's that? Guides. What? Moni, what did you say?
Sorry, I had both computers on. You were saying layers, so you meant guides. The guides are, never mind, you wrote it down.
Did I say that? Guides help when you have to create a specific layout or pattern or anything that has to be mathematically precise. Show rulers, Command Control R, and then pull the guide out to get rid of it. Select and delete, or push it, let's say, back into the rulers. To fix them in place, go to View, Lock Guides. When they are locked, you can't delete them either, okay? So View Lock Guides, but if you're wanting to get rid of it, you would have to say View Unlock Guides to get rid of it, okay? All right. So if everyone's comfortable with the conversation we've been having about guides and there's no more questions about them, give me a yes. Now notice that if you have a document with many layers, with many layers, here's one negative of guides, is that the guides go across all artboards. See that? So what if I wanted the guides on this page but not on that page? Well, then, sorry. So that's one reason to maybe have them grouped separately, and then you can turn the guides on for artboard 2 or the guides on for artboard 3, etc. But if you are going to have all your artboards need the same guides, then it would make more sense to not have to make 3 more over here, but to actually have your artboards aligned on the same row. So the same 3 guides work all along those. Remember how when we went to edit artboards, there was a way to rearrange them into being in a row, for example. So if I say okay with that, well, now they moved. That's the problem with, can I select all four and drag them there? Then I would have the same guides going across the whole thing. Does that make sense? That you don't need to do that. I'm going to undo this, but just to show you it's good if you need those guides to be across everything, but then that won't help you with the fact that the top guides won't be across everything. Now in this case, I'm making new guides from the artboards, right? I'm using the artboards to make them. And I am making guides that are individual to each artboard. Can you see? So let me just explain. I'm gonna undo. The guides that we made before went across everything. So I'm gonna undo, and I'm gonna go back to where we started. And when I'm not in artboards mode, when I put in a guide in here, it's gonna go across everything. If I were to be in seeing only this artboard, right? I'm zoomed in so much that I'm only in this artboard, and I pull a little guide out from there. When I back out, it doesn't matter. It still goes across everything. So it's not like it just is, it just is. But if you want a guide, and now I'm going to undo all those guides here from the bottom. If you want a guide to be only in this artboard or only in that artboard and nothing else, then you go to your artboards tool. So you hit edit artboards. And with that selected, I can pull a guide out and have them be only in that artboard. When I exit the artboard mode, my guides are still as useful as before, but they're only in that artboard. Does that make sense, you guys? Because otherwise so sometimes you want them to go across all your stuff, and that's great. But other times you want individual artboards guides. And if so, then you have to edit the artboards. Now it's a little bit complicated because you'd have to go in close up to this artboard, hit the edit the artboard. So you're in this one only, you select that artboard, and then you start laying all of the guides that you want into that one. Say you want these 3 guides for some reason, and these 3, whoops. I have to be in this artboard mode. I have to select it. So the important thing is to have it selected, and then I created these 3 guides for this one. Now, when I exit the artboards mode, I have created them only in those 2. Yes, Stan?
Would there ever be an occasion that you'd make the artboard a layer?
Yeah, there might be an occasion, of course. In fact, especially if you let me click on the edit artboards up there so we know that we're in the artboard mode. I'm just doing a screenshot of this. Again, as usual, there's things I teach sometimes not. Yes, there would definitely be a situation, especially if it's different art pieces. But in the situation of creating the parts and pieces, like the sample that you had here, there's no need for any of these to be in separate layers, unless what you want to have is one separate layer that is like your final piece, right? So you're creating all your parts and pieces, and it's all one layer of just like construction material, so to say. And then you can create one layer where you finally put it all in there and call it final. You could do that. I think I'm going to let you guys in your own practice decide. You can use layers whichever way you want. As you start playing around, there's going to be some restrictions, and some of them aren't coming to mind right now. Whenever I keep saying there's some restrictions, and other than the fact that you can't join 2 things that are in 2 separate layers in a group, one of the pieces will have to end up in one group or another. So that's the main thing I can think of. But since I haven't really explained groups, let me go on to explain groups, and then we can talk a bit more about layers, okay? So I'm working on artboards and stuff like that. Hopefully, did this part make sense? The part that you have to go into the artboards mode to make individual guides? Is that so? Y'all got that? We're able to, going into edit artboards, make your individual guides versus the guides that take over the whole thing. Okay. Guides work a little bit different in InDesign. And in InDesign, you can make individual guides. Well, I guess pages work very differently, artboards anyway. So, but yeah. And in Photoshop, if you create a guide that lands outside, it's considered continuous, but when it gets into the canvas, it becomes part of the artboard. So each program has a bit of a different way to work with their guides. So if you work with other programs, maybe they're equalizing that now. I don't know, but for the most part, they work differently in each program. Okay. So if that's it for guides, maybe we should save this one because now I don't want you to get rid of the guides, but it's really hard to work with all these guides in view. Oh, let me show you. So let's save this one and call this one guides sample or whatever. Guides practice more than sample. And save that. Because what I want to, and leave it open though, we're going to come back to it, but I don't want to continue working in this one because to continue working with what I want to teach you, we would have to take all the guides away, which I don't necessarily want to do. So let's leave that saved. And now let's go back and say file new or command N and create. And now we're going to go back to a blank. To a blank board. All right. And on this blank board, we're going to go ahead and in fact, I'm curious if I were to try to paste right now. Yeah, no. I just didn't know whether it would, since I had copied from before. Oh, no, because I hadn't copied it. I had dragged it out. Okay, that's why. When you drag it out, it doesn't stay in the clipboard. Okay, so never mind. All right, let's all grab and make a shape. Any old shape. Let's fill it with a color, any old color. And this time I really don't care. And we're not gonna, in fact, why don't we take the stroke off on this one? So no stroke. Okay, a shape with no stroke. Okay, and then let's zoom into that. And now this will become the beginning of a little robot, whatever. We'll make a little rectangle. I'm going to get another little rectangle. I'm going to make a little neck. This is the most basic of robots, you guys. And I'm going to give it a little chest. And a little arm. It sticks out like it's a stick robot. And 2 legs. And 2 little feet. Okay. As you can tell, I don't care how good or how bad this shape is. It's just stuff. Okay. We're not gonna, if you want to make it eyeballs and the whole thing, but let's just make, even if all you get is neck and arm and that's it. I don't care. When you're done making a little robot, again, don't make it perfect. Don't take time over it. Just make a bunch of rectangles. When you're done, give me a yes. No precision is needed. No perfection is needed. I just want with the same color. Don't give me different colors at all. Don't make it look just whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rectangles or however many you're going to make. But that's all I want. Rectangles with no other colors, no stroke. And there's a reason to why I'm saying this. And so please don't go, oh, I want mine to be cute and colorful. Nope. Just make rectangles and then give me a yes. All right. For the most part, I'm getting some yeses. Let me see. Vera and Karen, how are you doing? Oops, is it already time for break? No. I want to show you this before break. So everyone hang in there for a minute. Okay. You're good, Vera. Can I continue? Yeah. Okay. All right. For better, for oh, here comes oh yeah, Paula's connection was bad and she had here she is. Okay, so let me just catch Paula up for a second. Hi, Paula.
I'm sorry, I'm having internet connection issues.
Because your connection was flickering. Listen, all we did is we started a new file and I made a bunch of rectangles, one after the other to create this robot. Just
Okay.
that's it. No stroke, just square, 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 square. Make two things, make head and neck and body, whatever. And then just,
Okay.
it's not precise. It doesn't need to be cute and it needs to be like this, all the same color. All right.
Okay.
So now everyone look at my layers. I'm gonna open it up. Up here, I see a little robot on layer 1. When I open it, it's like, okay, I wonder what is what. What if I want to make his right arm go lower? Well, it's going to be one of the lines that's either going to be that could be an arm or that can be an arm because they're all straight lines. Does that make it's like, okay, which one is it? I don't know. I'm going to have to start clicking on. You might remember the order in which you made them because you just made them, but I'm going to start clicking on this little guy. Oh, nope, that's not it. Or that little guy. Of course, I could just go, well, click on the arm for goodness sake, and you'll know which one it is. But do you remember that sometimes you can't tell? And I'm going to go take you back to one of these examples where if you had just made, and I think Vera was asking, I don't know that I can go into each person's thing, but I don't remember where Vera's is right now. But anyway, any one of these, what if you had just designed this and you're trying to find that circle, not this circle, but they all look identical? Like there's no fat, thin. And when you made them, you don't remember if you made this one first, second, or third. So you don't know in what order they might be in the layers. So it's so easy to just click on one technically and find it, right? It's like it'll light up in the layers. But when you have a much more complicated image, and I do have, let me just take us for a second in our class files. I usually put this guy in there. I'm going to open it up. You guys can or not open it, but I'm opening a file just to show you this. You don't need to open it right now. You can do it or you can do it later. What if in here I'm trying to look for one particular one of these guys and look at my layers? So here's an example of 4 layers, guys, when you're asking me. Layer 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What if I go into this one where everything is green and I'm trying to find the right circle or the right flower? Could be quite complicated. And especially if what I want is kind of hidden under other stuff and I might not be able to see it. And if I zoom in, I might be able to find that exact little bit and piece in there. But when I try to select it, suddenly everything else becomes selected. Anyway, we're going to come back to this in a minute, and we're all, not in a minute, but later we're all going to open it. But let me just say that the best thing you could do is divide this into body, head, arms, legs. Like if I had, eyes and stuff like that, maybe we should go and make little eyes right now. And yes, let's make the eyes a different color. I don't know. Robot eyes are red, I guess. I don't know. And then I can go in and select that eyeball and copy it and give it another, I don't know. I guess these are pretty widespread eyes here, but now I have eyes. So that distinguishes itself, but look how a teensy little dot looks the same size as one full, I don't know yet, arm or leg or foot, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start grouping things for them to make more sense, okay? Now, you can group them after the fact, which is what's happening here, or you can group them before the fact. Let me just say also that a good idea, good practice is to name your layers, but say that you haven't named them. Say that you haven't named them. Then let's do a few more shapes in the yellow color. And in order to not have to re-choose the color, you can just select something that's yellow first and then start making shapes again. And then it'll come out the same way. And let's say that we have a little hand over here that's sticking up. So let's give this arm a hand. One is sticking up and one is sticking down. And let's give, let's give this little robot, I'm going to select one of the red ones again. I'm going to give him another copy, like a little belly button or something. There we go. He's a robot with hands and legs and eyes and belly buttons. or belt buckles, whatever you prefer. So now we have a bunch of shapes over here, which we might have or not have done in order. Like when we first created the legs, we put the legs and the feet together, but now I made arms and then I went back and gave them hands. So what that means is that now they're not necessarily obviously connected. And then my eyeballs and my belly button are all together. So it's harder to tell, might be harder to tell which is which. Okay. So if you all have bits or pieces of this robot now, let's go ahead and start making the arms and the hands be connected. The legs and the feet be connected, the eyes be connected, then the eyes be connected to the head, then the legs and the arms and the be connected to the body. Does that make sense? That's the best way to go, is from the small to the big. It's going to be much easier than if we first connect our body and then try to connect the bits and pieces. It would still work that way. But ideally, we're going to work in the other direction. So let me first say, we're going to connect these two by grouping them. So if I select the arm, I discover the arm is down there, and I select the hand is way up there. Because remember, we made them much later. So that's the conundrum. If we go back and give it 5 fingers after we've finished making shoes, then they're going to be spread all over the place. So now the best way to make a group is to select the 2 parts and pieces that are together. So I'm going to select that one, hold the shift key and select that one, or I'm going to just do that little drag where I select both parts. So this is going to be the left arm, I guess. And why it matters is because they're not identical. They truly there's a reason for one to be the left and one to be the right. So this is a left arm, and they're both separate places. And now I'm going to group them. So the group, you can show the command group in so many different places. I like the shortcut, which is Command or Control G. You can also go over here to the Properties panel, and there it's telling me to group. You could also go use the contextual panel, and it wasn't there before. But once you select, if you select one thing, it's not there either. But once you select more than one thing, when you select 2 things, then the little icon there is for grouping. So you can group in so many different ways. I like the shortcut in case I can't find anything else, but also because I learned it so long ago that it's in my brain. But if you like the contextual panel, then let's try that one to start with. I click on group. And there we go. Now I have a little group called group with a little arrow, and if I open it up, it's got 2 rectangles. I'm going to go ahead and go to this group, and I'm going to double click on the word group and call this one left arm. Now I'm going to select these 2, group them. This time I'll do it with this button here, group, and I'm going to call this one right arm. Now, what if I needed to do something to these arms and I move one down? Then it's going to look weird, right? Because if the arm's supposed to be lower, then both arms should probably be lower. And maybe I should have my arms grouped. And I'm going to be a bit exaggerated about it, but what if I want this and this one to be grouped so that when I move them down, I can move them at the same time, right? So now I'm going to select this group because it's a group now. And then I'm going to hold down the shift key and select this group. But what if one of these is way over there and one is way over there, like in my art, they're in 2 way different places. I could also go over here and select the right arm, hold on the shift key, and then select the left arm. So I could do it from the layers as well. You see that? When I have both selected, I now make a new group, right? Now, I haven't shown you yet, but this thing doesn't say group anymore. It says ungroup. Because it assumes that if I have something, let me just show you, if something is grouped, it assumes that if I want to do something to it, would be to ungroup it, right? Group or ungroup. Before that said group. Now I'm noticing that down here, when I group 2, this one is still saying group, but this one is saying ungroup. Another good reason to, since you don't know what the buttons will say, to just know the shortcut, which is Command G, Control G, to just group. And now over here, I have one group. And if I open it up, it consists of two groups. I'm going to double click on this one and call this one arms, or both arms, or whatever, or just arms, in case later I want to copy this into another little robot. So now I have a group of arms that has a right arm consisting of two shapes and a left arm consisting of two shapes. Does that make sense, you guys? Let's do the same thing for the legs. As soon as we're done with this, we'll take our break. Let me just finish this up. Okay, so I'm going to select these two and I'm going to call it a group. I'm going to do it this way. Oh, another way is to go to object and group. Okay, that's the long way. And in the long way is where you see the shortcuts, right? And then the opposite would be shift command G would be the ungroup. But right now I'm in a group and we're just double click and call this one here the left leg. I'm going to select these two, group, call this one right leg. And then I'm going to select both. And by the way, once the group is there, you don't need to have, this is important, you don't need to select every bit. You know how if this were individual pieces, I would have to make sure I got all 4 pieces to select them. But since this is one group and that is one group, I don't need to select all pieces. I just select, so just doing that selects all 4 things because I am selecting 2 groups versus 4 objects. Does that make sense? So just doing that selects 2 groups. I'm going to group that and call this one legs. So now I have a group for arms and a group for legs. If the legs need to move over, they're going to move together. If the arms need to move over, they're going to move together. Okay. Now there's one body. So now I can select all of this. So basically I can select my arms, my body, my belly button, and my legs, right? And I can do that by doing like this. And that's enough to select all of it, unless I want to do it by selecting over here, my arms, shift, my legs, shift. And then I can't over here because I still don't have these named to know which is body. One is a head and which is a body. So then I can continue over here after I've done this, where I've selected arms and legs. I can go back in here and now say shift and select also the body, for example. But I kind of think that this is the best way. And now I can make one big group called body. Body. So now if I turn the sideball on and off, I've got the whole body in there. Now I know that this one that used to be together is the belly button because it came with body. So now I can select on this one and call it belly button or belt or whatever you want it to be. So now I've got a body. And if I want to move the body around, I can. Now, it occurs to me that I was going to attach the neck to the head, but I'm not sure if it should maybe go with the body, but never mind. Right now, I'm going to connect it to the head just to choose something. So now I'm going to do that. I'm going to connect all 3 of these and call them head. And again, when I group that, it's going to be called head. Now, might be exaggerating a little bit, truly, how separate this is or not. But now, and now let's say that I want to copy this robot 4 times. It would make sense to turn these 2 into a robot, right? So I can select both and then just group it one more time. Just call this one robot 1. So here's my robot 1. Now I can option command and call this one robot 2. Does that make sense? Option command robot 3, robot 4. And so now, not command, option drag, not option command, option drag. Now I have 4 identical robots. But over here, how do we know which is which robot to call them that when they all look like the same thing? So in this case, you really need to either select it there, see which one lights up, to call this one robot 2. Or you can select it from here and call this one, that one was robot 1, so that's good. Select this one here, this one's robot 3. So again, what do you mean they're stacked backwards? Yeah, because remember the last thing you make goes on top of the top thing. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 makes sense because that's the first one we made. It's at the bottom, second, third, fourth. Now, if I were to want them all to be different colors, different shapes, different stuff, it would have been impossible had I had all the arms together, all the legs together. If this had been like, let me see, how many layers total did it take for me to do this? I have 1, 2, not layers, objects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 bits and pieces. If I had had all my legs together, I would have 14 little legs. It would have been impossible later to distinguish leg from one robot to another. Does that make sense? But now it's going to be so easy when we come back from break to individually change the position of the arms or legs or head of each robot, but most importantly, maybe make each one have a different color separately because they're all well assigned. And if I say, I would like my third robot's belly button to be green, well, there you go. I open robot, I open body, I go straight to the belly button, select it, and now I'm going to go find a green color for it, right? Ding. Now it's green. Does that make sense? Now, there's more to that. We're going to talk about how to get into groups in a different way, but that's just an example of having good strategically set up layers will allow you to make sense of how to go and how to find everything. So if you're making it little bit by little bit, like you're making each house independently, where was Stan's example here? If you're working on the parts and pieces here, it's going to be hard to group them yet because there's nothing to group. Well, here you have one house that's little parts and pieces. So in this case, after you finish doing this, you can drag, kind of click and drag across this and call it, you know, pink house or whatever way you want to distinguish it, right? And then you drag it and put it there. Maybe you drag it and you put it there again, and you're just going to make the second one be brown because it's the same house, for example, or make the one a bit bigger, but not if you already have the windows. So maybe you might want to assemble them here and then drag them up, or you might want to just put the bodies there and then drag the windows individually to each one. But when they're set, you collect those and then you group them. Does that make sense, you guys? Now, the robot we did with no background, so it was easy to just select the parts and pieces and group. But if you put all loose pieces on top of this blue background, it would have been a bit harder. So I know I said I was going to take a break. Let me just give you one last example of what I mean. I'm going to get rid of one of these guys. I'm going to give it this thing a background. So I'm going to make a rectangle in the background as if it were that blue sky or whatever, right? And then I'm going to make a shape. Let me get the eyeball and get the yellow. So I'm going to make sorry, I wanted that to be red. I'm trying to recreate. So here we go. I'm going to make that one be yellow. And this you can just watch and then just watch for a second. So here I've got one shape, and now I'm going to make another shape, and it's part of this shape. And these together are some other shape that I'm making. If this has to be a group, it's going to be harder for me to drag across these 4 to make them a group because I'm going to drag across and there's this there. Does that make sense? So I either have to go over here to select all my parts and pieces, which in this case wouldn't be so hard because they're all pretty obvious. If I have a lot of tiny little parts and pieces, it might be hard to select, 10, 15 little parts and pieces. So what I would have to do is I would have to grab this one and lock it. Right there. When I click in there, I've locked it. I can't touch it anymore. So now I can click and drag across these 4, group them, right? And then if I want to unlock it, I can unlock it or not. But many times our background layers, once we have them set, we just lock them. Anything else? And now we can move this one around. to our heart's content, and this just becomes nothing. Now I can decide I need to move my layer, but I don't want my group to move. I lock my group. And then now I go ahead and I make this layer supposed to be half layer or something, right? So if you have to just work with the object separately, you can just work with the object separately. That's all you do. But if you're trying to make groups or make individual selections of stuff that's on top of something else, the easiest way is to go to that one thing. And even if it's temporary, to just lock it while you work with the other stuff. But then you try to grab it and you're like, what's happening? It's not. Just remember that it's because you locked it. Okay. And then it's grabbable again. Okay. So now what you can try is to put, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this group and put one of my little guys again. And this background is now above it. So I need to bring it down under it. And then I'm going to call that one again, robot 4, because look, see how the name copied with it. It's many robot 1s or 3s. I'm going to call this one robot 4 again. And now it's above its own background and life is good. Now, what I could do is say, oh, my robot and my background need its own little group now. So I'm going to say group to these two. And now I have my fourth group with its own little background separate from the rest. Okay, so you can keep grouping and grouping and grouping independently as much as you want, but it's all within the same layer. I might want to call the layer 1 robots. I don't know, but I don't want to confuse that because then people might think it's a group. So I'm going to leave that one as layer 1. All right. If we're all good with this and if there's no questions, we can take our break, but I'm happy to answer any questions, anything that did or didn't work. I mean, technically what we did isn't hard, but I did it fast. So if you're behind, if you have any questions about the grouping or the naming, or if there's any mess happening out there, this is a great time to ask, and then we'll take a break. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and I've displayed all the parts and pieces of one of these robots. I've opened every single thing, and then the rest I'm leaving as is, and I'm going to do a screenshot of all of that. And we're going to post that. Give me a yes if all is good. Give me a no or raise your hand if you have any questions.
I think I grouped them the way you did, and I'm just now catching up to the red board, so
Okay.
finding hard to keep up.
Okay. I'll show that in a minute again. While you guys are posting, I'll demo the background again. For those of you who need some help with that, we create multiple shapes and retroactively. And later we're going to talk about how do you do it when you're working. As we work, you can also be creating these things instead of do it all retroactively, but in this case, retroactively selected the individual parts and pieces from smaller groups and made groups. Smaller to bigger groups. And all right. Cute. All right. So I'm going to go back in here for a second to explain what I did with that background. All I did is create, and I'm going to get rid of it for now. I'm going to get rid of that background. So I just created another box as big as the artboard. So I just went to my shapes, and since say that I was working last with yellow and I create one that's as big, it's going to come out yellow again, right? So I can change the color before or after. It doesn't matter. I went ahead and wanted to have it be the same color as the belly button. And I went ahead and chose that. but the whole point is that it's on top because it's the last thing I made. So the only thing I did to make it different, and actually, let me get rid of that other group I created. The only thing I did to this new box that I created is I went up here and I dragged it below. Boom. So that now it's below the fourth robot. Does that make sense, Vera?
Yes, it does.
Now, in order to make it be part of that robot 4, I then selected both the group, the many groups of robots, so the robot group plus the background, like that. And then that itself, I turned into one more group again, so one last group. So it gives me the robot, and maybe each robot can have an independent colored background. I don't know, maybe this one's background is green. And I bring it down under robot 2 because that was robot 2. And then I group those two, right? Of course, those colors don't do too well, but I group that. And then I have my my group. Sorry. Now to make that even easier, I could just grab that and watch what I'm about to do. This is actually, let me just show you this and then let's go. So I don't want to have to create a box again and again and again and again. I'm going to delete the one I just made. I don't want to have to create that box. If I have it the right size and the right shape, say that it was a complicated shape, I can go into this group and create it 4 times by dragging it there. And I'm just dragging the rectangle, okay? No, because I've already grouped it. It's okay. So now I'm selecting it from here. I'll explain that in a minute, and I'll drag it over here, and then I'll drag it over here again, and I'll drag it over here. But the problem, or the good news, is that once you're inside of a group, see how all the other elements created inside of that group? So I would have to drag each one of these and put them underneath, but I wouldn't know which one is which. So I have to look and see which one is selected. That one's my robot 3. So I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to drag it under robot 3. There it is. Then I'm going to grab this one. Oh, there it is. That box is under robot 1. So I'm going to grab that one and drag it under robot 1. And how about this one? That's under robot 2. So now I'm dragging it under robot 2. So I'm targeting the places where they have to be. So now I have one under each. And I could leave it at that and have them loose. Or as I did with the first group. So this is robot 3 with background. This was robot 4 with background. Now I can select these two, robot 3 plus rectangle, and group it again. I mean, again, it can get to the point where robot 3 with background and so on and so forth. And these two. And then I can individually go into each one. So it's up to you. We don't need to do all that, but you know, robot 2. But I was just showing you how when you create something inside of a group, it stays within that group. So you would have to drag it to another group. And now just to finish the subject of groups and not have to go back to it. Robot 1. Obviously, the last thing about groups, watch for a minute. If I'm going to create a new layer, this is just for the people who had layer questions. I'm going to create a new layer right there. And maybe I'll make a little floor that this robot is sitting on, right? And I'm going to give it, I don't know, whatever color. It's blue. It's a little blue floor that that robot is sitting on. Okay. Are you with me? Is everyone still watching?
Yes.
So if I open layer, there's the floor. This is floor, right? Well, that floor should be part of robot 1, right? So if I try to select it and make it into a group, 1 is in each layer, and I tried to group that, it stole the group from over there and put it in there because you can't have elements on different layers be grouped. So that's like one thing that might be a problem with it. And now, why did it lose its color? That is wrong. There's no need for it to lose its color. I have no idea. There, that was just a glitch. Yeah, no, it shouldn't lose its color. But it just became a new group under layer 2. It just see how it's not there anymore. Robot 1 is not there. Robot 1 had to go to the top. And because I started, the top shape was the blue thing, so it prioritized the blue thing and it brought that whole group up. So you can't group things that are in different layers. They will by default end up in one layer or another. And as long as the elements that you're grouping are individual and independent and they don't need to be together, that's fine. Once again, if you're making, a bunny plus, I'm trying to look for Vera's over here. Vera, where's your, well, she had the bunny and the, okay, let me look for Vera. There. So that's fine because you're never going to group that with that. If they're two separate layers, they just don't belong together. That's fine. Okay. But if you're making, say that she had made both these bunnies and in one bunny, it's a, skinnier bunny and in one thing it's a fatter bunny. And now she wants to join whatever, then boom, the whole thing would shift over and it would move into the wrong place or layer. So as long as it's separate elements, it's fine, which is why I said in the Vera's, but let me just clear out from Vera. When this one came up and I said, this is probably not a good idea. Are you here, Sarah? When I
Yep,
said this,
I'm here.
yeah, to make these be individual layers is because if you want this to be a house that then you repeat as another house, you won't be able to group house. Does that make sense? To
Yeah, it does. I didn't know
all
what I
the
was
elements of
doing.
the house are together, which you did do. All the elements of the house are together, and you move one entire house to another place to copy it. That's fine, but you'll be copying an entire layer made to make a fourth layer versus the group. But if you wanted that house to be with the tree and then you wanted the tree to be separate in some other tree, then so like house is okay, it's an individual thing, but trees being in another layer means that you could never group a layer of a tree with its house or another tree with it. Anyway, so I'm saying it just becomes more complicated. It's not a no, it's just more complicated when you're dealing with groups because groups are can't be in separate layers. That's basically it. So I'm going to undo this because this is my no, you wouldn't do that. And what you would do is you would put the floor on the robot 1 and not on a different layer in this case. Now, can each one of these be its own layer? Sure. Could robot 1 be its own layer, robot 2 be its own layer, robot 3 be its own layer? Sure, you could. If there's a reason to do that, fine. But so should they be different layers because they're on different artboard? No. If you group them individually like that, you don't need a new layer for each one, which if these were 4 different designs, you'd go, well, why not? But since they're for the same design and we're just going to vary the color and stuff, then why so? Why should I make them 4 different layers? It's probably not necessary. But would it be a problem in this case as long as each one is very independent from each other? No, it wouldn't be a problem. It would be fine. So again, there's the reasoning for groups is maintains, but beyond that, it's your choice. Okay, whether you do or not make them layers, but it's easier to have them as groups. All right. Hopefully by now you've all had time to save and post with all these extra explanations. And I do want to give you guys the freedom to have a break unless, is there any other question? I think I just heard someone say something. No, I just heard a little, Nope, it wasn't a question. Okay, so let's look at the time. 11:05. Oh, that's an easy one. Let's be back at 11:20 a.m. See you guys in 15. All right, let's come back to class. Bringing my tea over. Here we go. Okay. Either turn on your videos or give me a yes to let me know that you're in attendance. And if you have any questions, this would be a good time before we continue. Okay. All right. Cool. Hope you had a nice break. Mm. Mm. Oh, it's still a little bit hot. Just made myself a hot tea. I got cold again, as you can see. Well, I did turn off the heater. I guess I could turn on the heater and not be cold, but I made myself a hot tea. I don't like having the heater when it's unnecessary, but I will do that. Okay. Oh, okay. So I haven't checked the Safari, but I'm assuming all of you guys have been posting. Let me check. I'm seeing some robots here and some grouped work. Yeah, okay. So cool. Look at Moni's buggy-eyed robot. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. So you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, so a lot of little robot things. If you guys have done it and haven't posted it yet, please go ahead and put that in there. Let me look at yours. Oh, he's a cutie pie. But actually, the fact that you put in more details in here is, again, an example of how you're going to want to group that with this body. Otherwise, you'll have little straggly pieces all over the place. Okay, I think the grouping part has been pretty clear and stuff like that. Now let's go ahead and talk about what comes after that. Okay. Oh, wait, I saw something appear. Oh, Gary put his in, Stat put his in. Oh, and Moni, you gave him all different backgrounds. There you go. It's the same exact robot. Well, the eyes change, but the rest of the robot is identical. But look at how different they look, just with different backgrounds. Okay. Cute. And I'm interested in noticing that your wall isn't one wall. In this case, it's a wall made out of many little cubes of the same pattern, which I'm about to talk about repetitive stuff. So it's kind of nice to see there. All right, cool. Thanks everyone for posting your work. Let's head back to Illustrator.
So that wall, it was just that one robot. All the others are
Yeah.
singular.
Yeah. And over here, I was going to say, see how this wall here has all of these pieces, but the rest you can tell they're one, there's no, but and it's not that I can tell because it has these black lines. I can just tell from this, but it could have been that you hadn't expanded the walls on the others. So yeah, thanks for telling us, but yeah. Cool. All right, back to Illustrator. All right, so let me get let's do this. I don't know what you did or not with backgrounds, whether or not you did this little guy, the little flooring that I put in here to this one. But I just wanted to go through the fact that if I was to want to select that little floor piece right now, and I go grab it and I try to move it because I wanted it to be in another place, it's like, whoops, I'm moving the whole thing. Because for better or for worse, when you start working with groups like this, yeah, suddenly everything is grouped. And what if I only wanted to grab that little floor? Or if you guys didn't make a floor, maybe one hand. What if you wanted to move this one hand over? Well, guess what? You can't. And in fact, why don't we make one piece? If you haven't yet, go to one of the robots, open it up, select that robot right there, go into like the background maybe or something, just select that robot layer there. And then if you go make another box, you're like, it's not in the robot. You're as near as you can to having it be in that robot, and it's not. Because right now, and here's the why collecting these things at the end was fine, but it was also a little bit weird, is because to put things in there now, when you make them, you have to start dragging them into the right place. So if I make a shape right here, you'd expect it to be out there, and that if it was supposed to belong to robot 4, if you just were to go and select it and bring it to robot 4, I don't know, a little hat on robot 4, then it's not in robot 4. It's out in the open. It's right there. So if you need it to be in robot 4, you're going to have to put it in robot 4. But here's the thing. If I just grab it and drag it into robot 4 like that, then I've dropped it into any part of robot 4. Does that make sense? So I would have to really open the head, or not even open the head. I can just, when I see the head, then I would drag it into robot 4's head. Now he's with the robot's forehead. Does that make sense? You have to kind of keep stashing things in the right place. So is there a different way that we can do this? Do I really need to, any little thing I want to add to these guys, do I need to have them all appear separately and have to put them on each one individually? No, there's a better way. So everyone, just try that. Make a little piece and have to forcefully. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to select it and delete it. Let's all make a little hat or a little something, or a mouth, a face. I'm going to make a little hat. I'm going to make it completely neutral out here. But actually, it doesn't matter if it's neutral. Even if I make it over here on robot 4, say that this is a little hat and it has a little brim. Here, I made a little hat and it has a little brim. Now that hat and that brim are two separate pieces. And if I try to move one, it's going to come apart from its piece. So the first thing I should do, if this is truly the brim to a hat, would be I better join them, right? So this is how you would do things as you go. Instead of waiting until the whole robot was done, it would have been easier to create one arm and then the hand and then group them, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to make the brim and the hat. I'm going to select them both. And then I'm going to group them. And again, I'm going to select one, hold down the shift key, select the other. Because the reason I can't do this is because then I'll be connected to the background, right? Which wasn't part of what I needed. So I'm going to select the brim, shift the hat, and I'm going to Command or Control G. And over here, I'm going to call this one hat. But this hat could still be the hat for anyone or anywhere. It's not related to one robot. So in order to put it into robot, so now I'm repeating what I said before so that you guys have time to do it. I would literally have to go find the robot it belongs to. Let's say it belongs to robot number 4. And I can either put it in robot 4 first, or I can open robot 4 and go all the way to where it needs to go, which is the head, and just put it straight into the head. And if you're needing to see the names, you can make this a bit wider. If you can't tell because they're all amorphous shapes, make it a bit wider so you see the names. Because right now I knew because of how it looked that it was that way. There we go. Now I have the hat with the head. So now I can move the hat. Whoops. Oh, that's what I was about to teach you. I can grab the hat, select it from there, and move it over here and put it on his head. And now the right robot has the right hat. Now, I'm going to close that up and life is good. But that is still too complicated. If every little thing I want to do now, I have to make it, then bring it in, make it, then bring it in, make it, then bring it in, then yeah, it's kind of like, oh, I'll leave these robots as is. I'm not going to add anything to them. Which isn't so. Many times you have the piece ready to go, but other times you don't. And now you discover that you need to add, something, the purse in the hand of one of them, and shoes in another one, and a floor in another one, a hat in another one, and you want to go through this. So how do you work with each one of these individually? All right. So yes, layers helps, right? Like we just did. We just made it and then popped it in. That's good. But there's an actual better way to delve internally to each one of these little guys, each one of these groups. In this case, they're robots, but let's call them groups. So say that I would like to make the body of robot number 2 a different color. So I'm going to go select robot number 2, but it turns out that the whole group selects. In fact, yep, see, the whole group is selecting. I'm not just selecting his body. And in fact, if I go over to the fill, I discover there's no color because there's more than one color in my selection, so it reverts to being a question mark. So if I have 2 colors in a selection, it doesn't tell me what color it is. It just goes into question mark mode. So how do I get into just the body? Well, let me reiterate, one way, if you have good layers, would be to just go to robot 2 and go find the body, right? So we kind of went through that. We can do that. But I'm trying to show you an alternate way. So that answer is a good answer. But what if I don't want to use layers? Then I'm going to enter into isolation mode. I'm going to isolate one group from another. And as complicated as the word sounds, it's a really simple thing to do. What I'm going to do is, instead of simple clicking, I'm going to double click as many times as I need to get in. And I'm going to leave the layers open, guys. Leave the layers open because you're going to see something now. 2 things. You're going to look up here and you look up here. I'm going to double click one time. Just watch the first time if you've never done isolation mode. I'm going to double click on this body. And over here, I have isolated. And you can see that now I'm inside of robot 2 group only. Over here in the layers, I'm in isolation mode. I'm only in robot 2. And all the rest of my robots have kind of ghosted out. But I'm still in the entire robot. If I select this, I've got the full robot. I've just left behind one of my groups. And again, I have 2 colors here because it's gray and yellow. In fact, if I were to try to color this, the whole thing would color one thing, and I don't want that. I want to be able to color things individually. So now I have to keep double clicking. I'm going to double click again. And then I've gone deeper into isolation mode. So I went from the main robot into just the body of the robot, but I'm still selecting the whole body. And if what I was trying to do, for example, let's not say body, let's say that I wanted to give the legs stockings or something, a different color, then I still have to keep double clicking until I get into the legs. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to select one more time, and finally I'm in the legs. So if I were to give one color leg to one and one color to the other, I would have to double click again. But say that it's just the 2 legs that I want. I have gone deep enough, and see how I've gone deeper and deeper and deeper into the parts and pieces. So what's selected is the legs by now. So now I can go to the legs and say that the legs are going to be blue, for example. I don't think that's going to look good against the red, but for better or for worse, I can't tell, because in isolation mode, you can't see the rest of the colors. You only see the color that you're in. And if I had wanted to color on the one of them, I would have had to double click again and then select the one leg, and then double click again and gotten only the body of the leg to then give the body of, so now it's more like stockings, whatever, green color, right? So now I've given the entire leg plus foot a color. When the 4 elements, the 2 legs and the 2 feet, one color, but then I double clicked even further in to the smallest element and I gave one leg one color. If you look over here at the top, you have the whole path. The left leg inside of legs, inside of body, inside of robot 2. I called the group robot 2, and then I called the whole thing with background robot 2. I should have probably called these robot with background or something. But anyway, so they're one inside of the other, and then all the way to my layer 1, where everything is in layer 1. So now on top of that, I might want to make this one be a fatter leg. So I can change its shape. I can also go ahead and add something. I'm at this level. What if I want to add a boot or something? I don't know. I'm going to grab a shape and I'm going to make this be a little bottom boot or something. I don't know. Of course, I covered the foot, but you know, yeah. legs tend to have, boots tend to have feet inside of them. So now I've given this one a boot. So this little piece that I just made is in the right spot. I don't have to go make it and then bring it in like the hat. What if I want to give robot 2 a little hat? Well, if I'm in here, I can do that, but careful, watch. If I make this guy have a hat right now, what is it going to be grouped inside of? Look at the path. And if we don't know, what's that?
The leg?
Yeah. By having made this hat while I was working on the group called left leg, I've made a hat in the same group as the leg. In fact, let's check this out. I can back out all at once by hitting the escape key. And let's see. Yes, it's true. I had changed both my legs to blue, but then I went in and made one leg fatter and more like a boot. But I also made a hat. Let's see. Let's check out my robot 2. And here's my robot 2. Let me get in there. Let me get into the body of robot 2. And here are my legs. And if I open my legs, oh, I'm going to make this whiter and whiter. Turns out that there's my hat hiding inside the left leg because I made it when I was all the way into that layer. So it's neatly stashed, but it's not supposed to be a hat. It's supposed to, I should have given it, let me give it a different color so it just jumps out as, well, it doesn't jump out if it's that color, does it? Nothing's going to jump out much on a black, on a red background. But anyway, so I made it black so we can distinguish it from the leg. So these two parts are the legs. And then this part is the hat. So now I'm going to have to take that out and put it on top of the body. So, but can I do that? Yeah. If I put it in the wrong place, it's not a big deal. I'm going to go find the head, which is over here. And I'm going to grab this layer and drag it over to the head. So now if I turn on the head, it's in the right place. And if I turn off the legs, they don't have the hat. Does that make sense? So having a good, well-stashed set of guides still lets me, even if I made it in the wrong place. So once again, I'm going to undo. I had made it in the legs. See if I turn off, you know, the eyeball for the legs, the hat disappears together with that left leg. If I want it to be with the head, I could just have to select the, not select, like, it's not about the object selection, it's about the layer. Drag the layer down from its thumbnail into the right spot, which is inside of the head of robot 2. So now if I turn on and on, eyeball the head number 2, it's in the right spot. And I can either keep all these open or I can collapse them. It doesn't matter. Whole point is I didn't do it through layers. To create it, I got into isolation mode. So say that I want to give this guy a purse. If I now, if I were to make a little baggie to hang from their hand, what color would it be? That green. I've made it in a generic place. And even if I put it there, right? It's not really with that robot. When I go move that robot, I'm leaving that behind because it's not part of that group. So once you have things grouped, you have to be more careful. When you keep adding things, you need to be in that layer. So I'm going to select this guy. I'm going to, I can cut it, you know, cutting when you make it disappear, but it's like as if it were copied. Or I can just delete it and wait until I'm in the body of this robot to create that purse. Now, maybe I don't want the purse and the hat to be with the head and the body. Maybe I want it to be under accessories, right? So it's, you know, you can do something like that, but I'm going to go into the layers and find my spot. Or I'm going to just double click, double click, double click until I'm in the guy's body. And then I'm going to put, maybe I'm going to hang it from an arm well, not really, now that I think about it. I should probably make it because it's not part of the arms. Well, if I move the arm, the purse has to come down. Okay, so I'm going to put the purse with the arm. Okay, so now I'm gonna wait till I get to the arms. So I have to double click again to get to the arms. And now I'm going to make that little purse that's hanging from this arm. And now when I back out, I can either hit the escape key to get out of everything or watch. I'm in arms. I can decide that I want to go back just into body. So I click up here in the path. So I'm back in the body, then suddenly the belly button's available. So now I could, now that I went all the way back into body, I can go and select with my selection key just the belly button and make the belly button be a different color. I'm going to make it be, I don't know, purple. Well, purple and red are not too different. So let me make it be very different from the original color. I'm going to go make it be, what color is the body? Orange. So I'm going to make it be this bright little bright green there. So now I can back out and go into just the robot body. And then I can back out and go into the whole robot. Okay, so you can gently back out, or if you're all the way in, double click, double click, double click, double click until you're right in there. And you're just selecting the belly button. That's it. I've double clicked my way all the way into the belly button to change its color again into, I don't know, light yellow. I can either back my way out to take other parts and pieces or hit the escape key, or just come all the way here and click on that. And if you click on that arrow, you're going to go one level down only. So it's the escape key and boom, you're out of isolation mode. Okay. So is that working? Is everyone able to get in independently, not only to change colors independently, but also to put things in the right spot and create them in the right spot inside of the right groups? If so, give me a yes. So isolation mode is just double click, double click, double click your way in through the groups.
Diana, and the question, if what if, like, let's say then I want to replicate the hat to the other ones.
Yeah.
Can I do that all at the same time?
Well, we first have to isolate the hat, right? So I'm going to double click, double click, double click, double click until I have only the hat. And there I am, right? So I can select the hat, right? Which in this case is 2 bits and pieces. I'm going to click, select, click. Copy, or I can just select the group, the hat group, right? So if I can go back one time, then I can select just the hat group. So I don't have to select individual pieces. So either way, it's the same. Copy it. Yeah. But if I paste it now, they're all going to be in this body, right? So I either do that and then drag them into the right layers, or I now escape to get out of isolation mode. Then I go into this guy. I'll double click, double click, double click until I'm in front of the body or wherever it is that we had to be. I think it was body, not head. I don't know. I thought head. I had put it under the head. And now that I'm in the head of this robot, I've double clicked until I'm in the head. Look over here. Now I can paste. And now if I drag it over, the paste appears into the middle of the screen, but if I drag it over, now he's in the right spot. And now I can make it a different jaunty color.
Yeah,
Okay.
my question was if I could, like, copy paste to the same place.
Oh, to the same place. Yeah, I thought you said the hat to other robots, but if you want to.
No, sorry. Like, I want to make sure I'm placing the hat in the next robot in the exact same place, because, like, when you copy
Oh, I
paste,
see what you mean.
it moves to a different place, right?
No, I can do a thing called paste in place for something that needs to be in this exact same spot. But this hat can't paste in place. It has to, you have to place it in a different robot. So there isn't any way, because these are different shapes now. They are separate shapes. So you can't say, give me, You, by numbers, if the robots are identical and by numbers you haven't moved them, you could look at the position in the artboard of this hat, for example, and not even, because let me see, this is the position, the XY over here is the numbers, and I don't remember if this refers to its artboard or to the whole thing. It's probably artboard, so it could work that if I write 2.4453, and I'm gonna write those down, I'm not gonna remember, 2.4435 and 0.4319. I'm gonna copy the first one so I don't have to remember it. So if I were to now to go to this one that I just moved all the way here, there we go. And if I were to put 2.553 in there, and then over here, I'm gonna write
Okay. Yeah,
uh,
because when I was copying like the houses,
4319 and I hit return, whoops. Hold on, I didn't get that number right. 2043119. There we go. Now it's in exactly the same spot, but it looks like I've moved my robot. One of the two robots had gotten moved. So although the hat is in exact same spot, I guess at some point I moved one of my robots. So unless you keep everything totally shaped, but you could see getting the X and Y positions, I was able to put it in the right spot. Did that make sense?
yes, thank
You were saying something, Paula, I spoke over you. You were saying when you were
No,
doing.
when I was like making the houses,
Mhm.
like I wanted to place at the same place, you know, what I was, because I was kind of making the shapes on top of the original one and
Oh,
then moving to the other side.
okay.
So, for example, I created the three moons and then I grouped them and I moved them to the other side. But then because they were grouped,
Ah,
it was easier to see the location.
got it. Well, I never intended it to be an exact copy, but if it's going to be an exact, I mean, most of the times you wouldn't be making exact copies. That's
Okay.
just for practice. In real life, you'll make in your own illustration. If you want to make your own copies, a copy, you would probably have to, yeah, make the three moons and move them over, then put them in different groups. Yeah. But for the most part, the fact that you're doing this assignment is for you to learn to do it. But in real life, you wouldn't be copying another artist's work. You would be making your own. So that's really a bit of a moot point. But say that you, for any reason you do need to, then yes, you can copy all three. Say that I were to make, oh, this is I need to go back. That was a shot I can't do. Let me go over here. Say that in this one, I had made three circles. Let me just assume maybe that this is the exact same spot. Let me give it a pink fill so it's very obvious. Say that I had given it that position and I'm going to make them like that, like that, like that. And say that this was exactly right. Yeah. And if I want to move them out, and this is what we're going to do next, actually, in fact, if I wanted to copy these, I would have to select all four. I could now, if I move them out, they're going to hold that same, you know, that same proportion. So if you've been making everything exactly right, that should work. Even if you were to make a copy, that copy would hold the same proportion. Not if you copy paste. Copy paste, it holds the same proportion as long as you've done all four. If you copy each one individually, you wouldn't know where they're coming from. Does that make sense? So copy paste of all four, that's the same positioning they had. Right? So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I think this is what you meant, right? That you made them on top of
Yes.
this and then you dragged them over.
Yes, I was making them with exactly how you did, like with different colors, but then I would have to switch the colors back
To see
because,
them because I know
yes,
they are the same one. Yeah.
exactly. So that's why maybe it took me such a long time.
Yeah. So now you know. Okay. But yeah. And remember that when I want you to copy things, I want you to know the tool to make the house and the light and the moon, but I don't need it to be exact because in reality, you never will unless you become, you know, a forger or something like that that copies people's work. You won't ever need to really copy people's work. It'll be work that you'll create. But for learning, it's fine to be doing something that's exactly there. Okay. But yeah, the things copied in position together maintain their position. Oh, back to this one. Okay, great question. Thank you, Paula. Anyone else has anything coming up? And that's why when you try to do things on your own, you come up with these questions because you've been through that, right? And that's why I always recommend those of you who haven't yet done anything on your own, which I think most of you guys who are here have been doing your stuff. That's when you learn what to ask. So, okay. No questions? Everyone's good with getting things created inside of isolation mode so that they belong into their right spot? Now this one, since either the robot here had moved up or the robot here had moved down, the hat, which is in the exact same spot, isn't matching. So what I probably need to do is bring it down in that one or bring the whole thing down in this one to match the rest. And I don't want to do the numbers, but there you go. No questions? Okay, I want some photos of isolation mode. So let's double click and double click, double click, double click and be in isolation mode. And I want some screenshots of that where you can see the individual parts and pieces. So I'm going to choose the towel or whatever this is. But I'm going to show how the rest of it. It's actually, maybe it's better to go a little bit further back. Well, you'll see the body and the rest go gray. That's great. So you'll see ghost mode, color on the rest, but the fact that you're in isolation mode. So that's a good screenshot. Right. So here we go. Isolation mode, just double click repeatedly until you get in there. Now, if you do want to open that file called Big Art So Far that I had opened up earlier to make a point, now you can, just because it already has so many elements, now you can see how literally each one of these groups has groups and groups and groups of circles, and each circle has more groups and each thing has more. I mean, it's just, it's crazy how many elements we have for a flower or whatever. In this flower, say that flower there, right, is comprised of, let me go to that flower. And if I try to select it, I can't. So I'm going to double click, double click, double click, double click until I got to the center of the flower. But if I go back out and back out and back out, you'll see that the whole group, click, is of all the flowers and stems put together. But each one of these little guys is a leaf. Each one of these little guys is a stem. And then each flower individually, if I look in here, has its own little petals, right? So if I double click and keep double clicking, now I'm inside the flower, and I double click again and I'm inside one petal, and I can make one petal be bright pink, for example. So now when I hit escape, it turns out that I was able to make one individual petal of this very complicated shape bright pink. Does that make sense? By just double clicking my way in. I'll double click on this butterfly, double click, double click. Actually, this butterfly is made of individual parts and pieces. So in fact, when I do double click into this one, I can only color one part of this little butterfly at once. I know. Oh, it's a compound shape. I haven't taught you compound shapes yet. Yeah, it's a compound shape. We'll talk about compound shapes later. So yeah, it is one piece because it's a compound shape. Never mind about that. Just go and double click your way in to individual pieces. And yeah, all these circles, they're a bit different. Some of them are individual circles and some of them are not, depending if they're compound shapes or not. I keep coloring things, the colors that I have here that are different. So in this case, it is 2 individual circles, but other ones of these circles are compound shapes, and like the butterfly, we'll paint together. When we get to compound shapes, you'll understand them. Okay, give me a yes if everything is good and if you've tried to get into this big one and if you've made different elements in your robot. So let's, by the way, I've noticed that we haven't saved this one yet. So I'm going to say Command or Control S. And let's call this one grouped robots with, or the grouped robots dash isolation. Not with isolation mode, but. So basically you could do it either way. You could do it through layers to get all the way into something and select it. But even if you do that, and now I'm selecting those arms, if I try to now create a shape to go onto these arms, maybe more fingers or maybe a sleeve, or I don't even know what else to put on arms, then, or here, let me grab the head and try to give it some antennas. So I'm going to give it a line. Oh, one thing I wanted to say about lines, back to Paula, when you had the light poles, if you wanted to make them straight instead of kind of curvy, let me just show you. So I'm going to use this example for that. So I'm going to put some antennas on this robot here. I can grab that pencil, and if I try to draw it, it's not going to be a perfectly straight line, which might be cute or not, etc., but it's not straight. So one way to make sure you keep it straight, and I'm going to make it, hold on, let me give it, I'm not zoomed in enough. Oh, well, that's the point. I am zoomed in enough, but you'll see that if I'm in isolation. Whoops. Wanted to get my red. Why? Oh, because I'm not in enough. Okay. I'm gonna double click my way all the way into the head. Then when I get the pencil and I make that antenna that's kind of crooked, what I need to do, oh, because it's thinking I'm joining to that line, is hold the shift key. And then I get a perfectly straight line. Hold the shift key, and you get a perfectly straight line. Hold the shift key, and you get a perfectly straight line. So it does like 45 degrees angles, straight and vertical. Okay, now this line has no stroke, so it's not giving me any color. But if I get too near to this head, since it's a line, it's going to want to join itself in, it's going to want to join this head, which is why when I finished the line there, it reshaped, it had before it had reshaped my head. Okay, I'm going to give it a stroke. I guess it'll be that good old red. No, because it's against red, so it can't be red. I don't know. White antennas, I guess, bright green antennas. I don't know. And I'm going to make it a bit fatter so that we can see it. Oh, that's a bit too fat. I'm going to give it that, and I'm going to make it a little circle. Give it a teensy little circle at the top. So there's an antenna, and I'm going to fill it. And then these two shapes now, I'm going to select them both, and I'm in isolation mode, okay? I'm in the head, but I've made two shapes. I select both of them, and I'm going to create a little group in here. So I've made a group, and I'm going to call it antenna, so I can keep working like before, only I'm working within this teensy little area only. Does that make sense? And if I grab this one, if I wanted him to have two antennas, again, I'm in the head, okay? This is the head isolation mode. See over there, it just shows you. I can right hold on to my Option key and drag this over and create the second little antenna over here. No, I have two bits and pieces. So by the time I hit Escape, I've got my two little antennas. And if I go into the head, there's my antennas. I made them in the right spot. Had I done it without isolation mode, they would have landed in the middle of everything and I would have had to just drag them in there. Okay. Now I'm going to just back up and here we go. Yes, that little hat here is taking over. I'm going to get rid of the hat from there. He's really taken over the spot. Or maybe I should have just undo. I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to change its color because it's driving me crazy. Really doesn't match. Okay. That's better. And this one, I never gave it a brim because it was just a box I made. So I'm double clicking until I find it and boom, I'm going to get rid of it. Now, what I would like this one to have is antennas, but I don't want to make the antennas again. I'm in isolation mode, right? So how do I bring those antennas into here? Can I click and drag? I'm in isolation mode. I'm in this head. Well, if I were to try to grab this and drag it over, I can't because this is the only thing selectable. These things are not selectable. They're ghosted, right? So I would have to double click my way into these antennas, right? Then I can shift both of them. If I were to copy them now, they would end up with robot number 3. Yeah. Because I would copy them now, like with the drag, I mean, like by dragging. If I just make a drag and put them here, Option drag, they're still in robot number 3. So in this case, the best solution is to just copy with a Command C, Control C, or double click my way back to the first head. And now in the first head, paste. They'll end up pasted in the middle of nowhere and then drag them there. And then I'm going to give them a different color just because we're giving each element a different color. I'm going to make these, I don't know, blue. And I hit Escape. And now these are in the right spot. I guess I left them a bit too low down. I guess this robot moved as well because I'm close to the top versus this one. Oh no, it's just that these I made behind. Oh, you've got the first antennas are behind the head versus these antennas are in front of the head. So I need to go grab these antennas, double click my way in, and then grab the antennas here in the layers and drag them behind the head, right? Which is down there. Okay, so now my antennas are behind the head. So between grouping and layering, between isolation mode and layers, you work in conjunction. Does that make sense? And it'll become second nature once you begin to notice, but basically to drag them into stacks, you need the layers. Otherwise, they'll stay in the other side. How are we doing here with layers and stacks and copying and paste them? I want you to try that, okay? To make an element in one shape and to put it in the other shape and to discover that you really need to get out of one group and into the other for that to happen. And then to copy that element and from one group and then go find a way to paste it and have it be in the right group in the other shape. I don't know if I already asked you for feedback. I think not. Let me clear your feedback. And in case that feedback was for the right thing, then please give me feedback again. If you were able to handle copying and pasting amongst multiple different layers and put them in the exact spot you want with a combination of layers in isolation mode, then give me a yes. And I would love to see at this point all your different robots because I'm just doing 1 or 2 elements, but hopefully you can give me a little general post of different robots and it would be fun to see how different they look now with all your different accessories and things. And let me see, Vera. Cool. You've got your different well, this is from a little bit earlier, from 14 minutes ago before I asked you to do this, but you have some feet, some hats, some floors. Karen, you also have a little purse and a couple different shaped colors. Great. You guys can do whatever you want with the robots. Oh, Gary is having some fun with making him even have different eyeball colors. Cool. For some reason, this makes me think of a waiter or a valet or something instead of a purse, doesn't it? Oh my goodness, Moni. That is a cutie pie. I like that. Oh, that's fun. Okay. I'm glad you guys are having fun. Well, I'm out here slogging away at the basic robot. Okay. No questions. All is good. I'm seeing yeses. Okay. So for homework, I want you guys to make beyond other stuff that we're going to do. I want to actually have you play around. There you go. Thank you, Moni, for making me laugh. I'd love to see your different, I would like to see, again, don't ever compare yourself quality wise. If all you do is put, little box heads and floors, please do that. But I want you to see modifying different robots, okay? So that you learn how to modify individual robots inside of their own individual group. So again, doesn't need to be a perfect little person gift and happy birthday, I'm here kind of thing. But I do want to see the basic color thing changes and stuff like mine. Where's mine? Where you're just doing a different, did I post mine? Yeah. Where you're doing a different thing to each one. And thus I want to see your layers to see that the parts are in their right place. Okay. So that's one homework to build upon these robots. And if you would rather create a different shape and not build upon robots and give me 4 little cars with different kinds of shape, whatever, just give me either build up on this one or more, something that has multiple layers. And although the base was the same, all the accoutrements should be different. Okay. Or the same because you've learned to copy and paste, but with a different color of a different texture or something. Now, today we're going to learn a bit more about those colors and well, maybe not really. We won't really learn about colors and textures until next week. So now I'm going to go back into alignment and shapes and duplicating and things like that right now. So oh, finally I can brought my tea for during break, but I haven't had it yet. These little thermal things are much too efficient. Okay. It seems like everything is good. I'm not seeing any questions and I'm not seeing any puzzled faces, and I'm seeing posts. So life is good. I'm going to clear your answers. And let's go make a new file. First, make sure you've saved. By the way, we want everything to be saved at this point because you want to not lose any of this work. And then let's go and set and say file new again, or Command Control N. And by the way, this one you don't need to save if you change the colors of it, if you want to keep it the way it was. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this one now because there's no need for it anymore. So I'm not going to save that one. But I still do have these two, and that's fine. I might have a reason to come back to this one. For sure, I'll have a reason to come back to the first one. If you don't have it open, that's okay. We'll recreate something. But for sure, but I'm going to keep this one in case something else occurs to me. But now let's make a new file. Command or Control N. Good old yes, create with the 5 windows. And let's do something else. So in the first one, I showed you how to work with guides. If you were to make columns or stuff like that, we didn't actually get precise guides. By the way, the guides, one more thing, the guides can be paced precisely with numbers. So you know how I just showed Paula, which turned out not to be the exact thing she was asking, but I showed Paula how to put in a hat with numbers in the exact precise spot. You remember that? You can do that to a guide. So if you're dividing something and you want it to be, 2 and whatever, this over here, this X and Y, if the art is expressed in inches. So if I put 1X at 3, I'm going to put the number 3 in there. I'm going to tab to the other one and make that be, say 5. right? So that's where 3 and 5 and the X and Y are. And if you look at the guides, here is that guide is pointing straight up to the 3, and that one and the other one is pointing. I know, because this one is only has one direction. It doesn't have width. So that's the place it is. It's in 3. Then if I make a new guide, right, and I want it to be only half an inch away, I would have to call it 3.5. And now I know that that's exactly half an inch away from this one. Does that make sense? I'm using the numbers right there. So I'm not necessarily going to talk much more about that, but just saying if you go over here and put 4, then you'll be, not 4.0, then that'll be exactly another half inch. So now these 3 are exactly half an inch from each other. Does that make sense? Had to use the X's, and then the Y's would be this, guys, if I want this one to be at 0.5 and the other one to be at 0.1, 0.2, etc. So just wanted to remind you that numbers are there. You select the shape, and then in the properties path, you would have the exact coordinates. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about coordinates. I'm not going to spend much more time on that, but let's head over to Untitled 4. So unless do you have a question about the coordinates or the numbers? Where to find them? No? Okay, so you can also create a shape and put it at the exact coordinates. I want this one to be at exactly 3 by 3, and you hit return, and boom, that's exactly at 3 by 3, for example. Okay, I keep saying I won't say anything anymore, but I'm just trying to show you how it works with the guides, but also with the shape, right? You can make a precise location for it. All right, let's head over to the new one. But for the most part, at least the way I do art, and believe me, I mentioned this a few times, but I had a student once who was a maker of mandalas. He was a mandala designer, and he had always done them by hand and then with sand and all these things. And one day he wanted to be able to learn how to do them in Illustrator. And boy, do you need to have it be done by the numbers, precise and exact, to create a very geometric pattern like that. And so, yeah, he had to do every little shape that he placed. He had to place them that way. But if we want to get away with being almost exactly right, and in fact, it's getting so good that it is pretty precise, but it isn't precise to the umpteenth millimeter, so to say, then you just use smart guides. So we're going to do that. We're going to use smart guides to make some stuff here. So let's start with a rectangle. And this time I'm going to give it appearance before I draw it, just to show you that you can. And by the way, you could give the appearance, you know how I've always pointed over here for the appearance? Once you select the shape, you could also change it over here. But if you change it over here, you wouldn't be using the swatches. When you click on this, you would have to double click and you'd be given to a place to select color. And I'm not going to spend much more time telling you how to choose the exact colors right now. I'm just going to say that if you don't want to use the palettes, and you go over here and you double click, then you get a chance to click on something over here and make it be a color. If I double click on this bottom, this is the stroke color, and I can say that I want the stroke color to be that, whatever. So then that would be the colors for my shape. That doesn't give me a chance to modify the width of my stroke or anything, just the colors. But I'm just showing you a place where you can make colors happen. We'll explore that later. Right now, I want to give it no stroke. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and say no stroke. And if I wanted to do no stroke over here, watch down here. Not only where I chose the colors, right? That was the front and the fill and the stroke. That's what these two are. If I click on my stroke, it turns out that the last stroke I chose was green. The one before that is a possible gradient for stroke, which I wouldn't choose, or none. So I could also go here and choose none for my stroke, or I can go back to green. Now, what if I now choose a different color? If I double click this again and choose, I don't know, a bright green for my stroke. No, the other was a green. Let's go for a different color, very bright. I'll go for pink. Now this has been colored pink. So I can go from none to pink. So my last recent color is there. Okay, so if I make another shape, I want to change its color, I only have the last recent color. I don't have all my palettes, okay? So this is not the place, this is only the place to create a new color. Anyway, that's just showing you right now, all I want is one shape, and I don't really like that color. So I'm gonna make it a bit more orangey. There we go. Okay. So I've got a shape. Oh, I left a stroke on. Let me select my stroke and say no. And again, you don't have to do it from here, but I'm just showing you an alternative. I actually manipulate my colors from here always. I only use this when I want to create a new color, but just showing you that it is possible to do that. Okay, so we have a shape. Now this shape, I want it to be a precise square. So who remembers how to get, if I've already made it, how to make it a precise square right now? Watch.
Shift.
Actually, no, good guess. A shift constrains proportions. So if I now hold shift, it's going to proportionally make this bigger or smaller from the shape it already is, right? So, but it's good that you remembered, because in order to get an exact square, when I am making the shape, if I held the shift, then I would get a precise square. Does that make sense? But I already have the shape made. How do I get an exact square out of this shape that's already made? A couple of different answers, but let me just move this out of the way. A couple of
Can you
different
transform it and
uh,
enter the numbers that you want in the little properties for width and height?
transform with the numbers is one way. Exactly over here, I could make it be exactly 2 by 2. So that's one of the ways. I can say 2 by 2. Hit return. Whoops. I did it in the wrong box. I did it in the location box. This is the size. I'm sorry. That was location that I was using before. This is width and height. Go ahead and do 2 by 2 like that. Hit return. I got my perfect square. That's one way to do it. Now I'm gonna, if everyone's done that one time, that I have it in 2 by 2 inches and at exactly 2 by 2 inches away. And it's counting starting from there. So let's put the rulers on in here, Command R. And if this is 0 and 0, then that over there what's happening, guys? That over there is 2 by 2 and it's not. So what's happening? Who can see where a 2 by 2 is measured from? Can anyone tell? Because yes, it's 2 by 2 inches. And then in the location, it's 2 by 2. And when I go over there, I go 1 by 1. But this is right. Who can tell what's happening there?
It's from the center.
Yes, it's from the center point. That's the origination point of this guy, and it's at 2 by 2. You see that? This color doesn't and lend well. Let me just go back to one of these colors again, because it's better for all of the things I need to teach you to have a color where you can see. So back to yellow. That center point is at exactly 2 by 2. Okay. If I were to say 3 by 3, it's gonna move. Oh, I did it the wrong way. Again, I changed the size. Sorry, I tend to go into, if I go 3 by 3 over here, 3 tab and 3, then it's at exactly 3. If I were to move guides out, 3 by 3. Got it? Anyway, I don't need guides, but I'm just showing to show you what these are about. Now, just so you know, this could change. I could want to count 3 by 3 from the top left. So see this little box right there, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you guys since the conversation came up, and since Sarah answered the numbers first, I could click right there. See how I've changed? See how the little white box was in the middle? I can click over there to change my reference point. If I put this right there now, that would be at 0 by 0, not at 1 by 1, because I changed the reference point to be right there. In which case, had I said 2 by 2, then the beginning of your shape would be at 2 by 2. Does that make sense? This is my shape reference point. So now it's measuring where this little guy is, and it's putting it at 2 by 2. Does that make sense, you guys? Any questions about that? Am I going way over? I wouldn't say overly detailed. Does that make, yeah, got it? Now by default, it's always centered, okay? But I could have it go the bottom, the middle. I could change the reference point. But whenever you see one of these boxes, it's changeable. And whatever you change it to will refer to that object with respect to, you're not changing where those things are. Now, I'm going to blow your mind one more time. Let's bring it back to center point just to clean it up. One last thing I'm going to show you. And then after that, let's continue. But I'm going to move this out of the way for a second. Watch. My ruler says that that's a 0 point and that's a 0 point. So this is a 5-inch and this is a 5-inch. Is that good? Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my mouse, just watch, in the little corner between the two rulers. I'm going to just drag this out to somewhere over here, and I'm going to let go. Now I have moved my 0 and my 0 to start over there. Basically, if you pay attention, here's a guide. I'm going to pull out a guide. I've made my 0 start over there. Do you see what I mean? I've dragged from the corner of the two rulers. I'm going to say that's my 0. Now that really helps if I need to make something be, I don't know, an inch away or 2 inches away from something else, and I don't want to be doing a lot of math over here, then I can 0 out. So sometimes I need to make something be exactly 1 inch, 1 by 1, and it has to be starting there, for example, and who knows what that there is. So what I do is I drag my zeros to there, let go, then I snap that in place. See how it does that little snap? And then I know that if I now need to make it be, 1 inch from there, whatever it is, then I've got it in the exact spot. So you can snap. And now when you're done moving things out, you just wanted to see what size this was or whatever. Now you can double click over here to move the zeros back to their right place. Okay. So yeah, I can move this down here to measure from there. But then when I'm done and I want my zeros to be logical again, I'll just double click in that same spot that I took it from to 0 out. And now I'm back to having this be 5 inches. Okay. So this says many times it's a very useful thing to know. I'm not going to show you an example where it's useful right now. So I'm going to just grab these guys and delete them or drag them back to the rulers. But I just wanted you to know that even that can change, because you might do that sometimes by mistake, maybe when you're trying to grab a ruler and you might be wondering what's happening to my numbers, are all weird. You'll have to double click. And so what happens to me, I'm not good at math. So when I have a weird numbered shape and I have to get something to be like 2.75 away from the right side, and I have like many, many little lines here because maybe this is 18 inches big, I'm like, I don't know how to figure out 2.5 backwards from the number 17 and a half. So what I'll do is I'll grab my zeros. I will 0 it over there. And then I'm going to count just 2 7/4 back from there. Does that make sense? Which when you have a 43 1/4 artboard and a 24 and a thing, the numbers become just, to me, inches. Guys, I'm from Argentina. I do centimeters. Inches are still like, my brain explodes a little bit. So to be able to figure out from a 14 1/8 inch thing, how to subtract 1 1/8, the easiest thing for me is to move my ruler over, and then I can count 1, 2, 3, and an 8th, boom, and I put it there. It's literally, I have to do like the kids, right? So that's one way I use that. Okay, I'm going to double click, but let's put the zeros back where they belong. That was just a quick little, how come I use the moving my zeros around a lot. And it's just to deal with the darn inches. Sorry. The beautiful imperial system. What is it? Is it metric is my system? What's how do you call the inch system? Is it imperial? No.
Inferior.
It's an imperial.
Did someone say inferior? I like that. Thank you. The inferior system. Okay. All right, so now I was asking the question, how do I get this to be a perfect square? And a perfect answer from Sarah, you just do the numbers. Yep. And then I went in and told you much more about numbers. Gary had mentioned holding the shift key, and he wasn't wrong if I'm creating it, but it didn't work if it's already made. Any other ideas? There's a third answer here, which is the right answer. I mean, Sarah's was right. This is another way to do it. Nope. Okay. It's all about smart guides. So I'm going to grab this shape, and you know how you can make it tall, short, big, whatever you want. Notice that as I bring it in to turn it into a square at some point, boom, there's that pink diagonal. That's telling me it's a square. If I move a little bit out or away, in and out from it, it's not, and then boom, smart guide telling me I've got a perfect square. Not only that, but look at my mouse. I'm still clicking. When I am moving that thing around, right next to my mouse, bottom right, I've got this thing that says width and height, and it keeps changing. And the moment I hit the right spot where the angle pink line is going to diagonal, it's telling me width 1.25, height 1.25. And I let go, and I've got my perfect square. And all I needed was the smart guides. No need to pull out guides and rulers and sizes, and just using your fingers, well, your mouse to move your thing, you got your perfect square. Okay, so everyone make a perfect square from a rectangle, not from the scratch, but from a rectangle. Make yourself a perfect square. Now it's important to let go the moment you see the green. Don't, like, if you keep moving, you let go, you don't have a perfect square. So you need to stop, make sure you got your perfect, diagonal, and then let go, like lift your hand off your mouse or off your touchpad so there's no more dragging around, so that it stays a perfect square. And if you're not sure, you can go over here and check, and look, I didn't lift it exactly right. I lifted it 1.248. So I didn't make it perfect 1.245. So I'm going to go in and let go now again. And now it's still 1.245. But when I let go here, it says 1.248. A lot of people mention that. How come here it says one thing, over there it says another? Well, 1.248 is like, over here you get the exact precise numbers. Here you get the rounded out numbers. Okay. So it stops at 1.25. Here it's telling you 1.8. So if you truly need it, say for a mandala, for this to be truly 1.25, like between 1.25 and 1.248 in real life, it's nothing. It's like not even a hairline. But if you truly need it to be precise, like you're designing the rocket that's going to the moon, yeah, you need precise numbers. Then you might go over here and you might replace the 4.8 with a 5. You know what I mean? But other than that, that's pretty much a 1.25 shape. All right. So by that same token, being almost precise, if not exactly precise, we're going to go ahead and move this one around and discover that sometimes I get things in the background. Ooh, there it is. I got this thing that's telling me that the bottom line of my piece is coinciding with some important thing that has to do with this artboard, and it happens to be the midpoint. But if I were to now hit it right there, now it's telling me that this midpoint of my piece, my object, is coinciding with the midpoint of the artboard. And if I get to there, now it's telling me that it's the midpoint, the top border is at the midpoint, right? And if on top of that, I'm also centered both ways, now it's giving me the message that I'm centered both ways. So if I want to put this in the exact center of this artboard, all I need to do is wait until I get two precise lines intersecting, one from the side and one from the top. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to move this around. There we go. Now I've got this centered and centered. And when I let go, this is in the exact center of my artboard. Go ahead and try that. And if that is working for you, give me a yes. And I don't have to measure. If I were to measure, if I were to bring out the guides, is it exactly 2.5? And there it is. And this is exactly, there it is. That's precisely 2.5. And then this is precisely 2.5. And I'm putting them there with the rulers. When I look up, it's like, oh, look, coincidentally, my shape is in the right spot, right? But I don't need to do that if I've used the smart guides correctly. That's good. Paula, how are we doing with that? Oh, are we almost done? Yeah, 15 minutes. Okay. So now I didn't necessarily want this to be centered. So let's go ahead and move it over here. And there's no guides telling me, and this is the part that it's like, well, there's no guide telling me that I'm at exactly half an inch away and half an inch away. So it doesn't coincide with any of those markings that matter. So if I were to want to put this exactly half an inch away and half an inch away, then I would have to either use the numbers over here or pull out some guides to begin that, right? At half an inch away and half an inch away. But for now, I don't care. I want it about what I think is about the same, and I'll show you why later. But right now, put it at what you think is about precisely the same distance from each one. And now, and by the way, this is the answer to a pattern that I'm going to create right now, but it's also the answer to the original question of how do I make all these windows and things go faster that Paula had asked, and how do I make them be in the same spot and all that kind of thing. So this is a very long roundabout way of getting you guys to understand, which is today's class. So that's great. First of all, watch. If you haven't done this before, just watch. I'm going to hold down my selection, my option key or alt key to get a duplicate. And now I'm going to make 3 different shapes, one next to each other. And look, I'm holding down the option key, and already by moving my mouse, I haven't clicked. See how the shape, the smart guides are giving me some kind of a line telling me how far I am from one end, how far I am from here. And if I look at the numbers, I'll guess, and look at that. That says 5103, and this says 4735. So I didn't get it exactly right. Can you tell? It's telling me the numbers, and nope, I didn't. By eyeballing it, didn't get it exactly right. But right now, I don't care. I'm going to hold down here, and I'm going to drag something out. Now, when you drag it out, it's a loosey-goosey shape. And the only way for me to make sure that it's in the right place is by using the smart guides, where again, it's marking a midpoint to midpoint, telling me, yep, you got it on the same line. Now, coincidentally, I'm getting something that tells me I'm intersecting with the middle, but that's not necessarily the point I'm trying to make right now. But since it is coincidentally there, I don't care. I'm going to let go. So I know by virtue of the smart guides that this and that are in the same line. But let me delete that one and show you one more trick to make absolutely sure that it is on the same line. And it's back to Gary's answer, which is the shift key, because shift key constrains, right? So when I hold on my option key to double up, if at the same time, if I'm loosey-goosey, not sure, if I hold on my shift key, boom, it's going to force it to be constrained into the exact, like I can't move it up and down unless I go really far off. It will be moving for sure to the right. So I'm holding the option key to make it the duplicate, and I'm holding the shift key to make it go only to the right, and I don't even have to depend upon the smart guides to know I left it in the same spot. Now this is important. I'm going to let go of my mouse first before I let go of my shift key and my option key. That way it stays in the spot that's constrained. How are we doing with that? So shift key constrains. Think about it as constrained. So whenever you need something to be constrained, the shift key will do it. If I had been trying to do it underneath, and again, I wasn't sure where to put it, and I hit the shift key, it would only go under. Now it's also good for diagonals, so it might work with that. Anyway, so here we go. Now I have 2. I'm going to select one more, do the same thing, option and drag, and now there's a new, so look at me, look, there's a new line that's going to show up. Maybe I hold the shift key or not to keep it straight, but there's a new thing that's going to show up. Boom, right there. Now the smart guides are telling me that these 3 are distanced from each other exactly the same. If I move this one a little bit more, then it's still constrained because I'm holding the shift key. If I let go of the shift key, then it's not even in the right place. I would have to match it. But when I hit the exact same distance between shapes, it gives me that other little thing in there. And now if I let go of my mouse, now I've made 3 perfectly shaped next to each other little boxes. If that's working for you, give me a yes. All right, Vera, Karen, all good? Karen, you're talking, but you're muted. You're muted, so.
Yeah, I made my boxes too big, but yeah, it's working for the
Okay,
second box.
well, guess what? It's so easy to do. Delete the big one, make it smaller, right? And wait until you get a little box. And then now that you know how easy it is, just drag one, move it out to some size, and then
Yeah,
drag
that's what I was doing. I was
the other size, right?
doing
So,
that, yeah.
perfect. So now that you know that you can just drag and stop and drag the other one. Now, and I know there's not many minutes left in class, but I'm not fussing about it because I know very quickly we can make the next part of the pattern. Say that we want to fill this and have a 3 by 3, little pattern here. And this reminds me a bit of Vera. First of all, and I'm just gonna go over here for the people who want to see what I'm talking about. She had drawn those lines and they were kind of crooked, right? So I said, well, if you instead hold your shift key, it's a perfect line, remember? So again, it constrains. The pencil on its own is crooked, but the shift key, when you draw the line, gives you a perfect line. Let me give it a stroke because it has no color. I'm going to make it black, yeah, and I'm going to make it a bit fatter so you can see it better. So here's the perfect line, right? That we drew. Now you treat it as an object. You leave the line, and if you were to make another one by holding the Option key, and you wanted to put it in exactly the right spot, you would hold down the Shift key first so that it can't go up or down. Okay, remember how she had some that were higher than lower? Put the Shift key, and then you let go. But now, when you make the third one, you wait to see those little intersecting things right there to tell you're at the right distance. So now that's exactly right, the same exact height, and they're at the same exact distance. You don't need to do the second choice right now if you don't want. I want to continue with the blocks, but for those of you who are fine with the blocks, you can do that. Let's go back to this for a second, and then we can continue on that one. I was just trying to show you that no matter the shape, the tool works. Okay. So now I can keep making another block and 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 another block. It'll take me a while to do that. Or I can select all three. Watch. Option key, Shift key to constrain. Okay, so Option key to start dragging, Shift key to constrain, and then I wait until I have a little same distance there. Then I do the exact same thing. And now that's telling me it's the same distance. And I've just out of the blue in no time created a perfect pattern. Hopefully
Yeah.
hopefully you're all going, ooh, ah. But yes, Paola, what's up?
Hi. Okay. No, I love that. So now let's say, remember, I don't remember, maybe it was Vera, that, when you want to have like, you will have half of the squares if you continue the pattern inside the big square, and half of the squares will be outside because
Yeah.
you're getting just,
So yeah, I hear you. And what she's talking about is that square where Vera had to cut out.
yes.
That's next class.
Okay.
We're getting there. Can't teach you everything one day. But
Okay.
question, and perchance if you want to make sure that I talk about it, I mean, I will be talking about that. That's the tool I'm going to teach you next week, but just in case, you can also remind me of the example, Vera's example, okay? So that I'll apply it to Vera's example. Otherwise, I'm going to teach you the tool anyway, because that's what's coming next. So now, one more thing, if all of these, you might think maybe you didn't end up having them centered, they're centered to each other, but you didn't get them in the right place, you can select the whole group and move them around. And at some point, the computer is going to tell you, oh, there we go, you're centered and centered. Does that make sense? As long as everything was equidistant, that's going to work out. But let me show you in this case where I have more to make. If I made 3, I'm going to now grab these 3. Instead of putting one more each time, I'm going to grab 3 like I did before. I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to hold down the Option key first. The Option key first because it gives it that's duplication. The Shift key can come at any point. I can hold it now, even if I'm way over here, and it'll force it into place. And then I'm going to put it next to these until it snaps and tells me right there that that's the right distance. Now I'll select all 6 and drag this out. Boom. And then I can select all of these, drag them over to the left a little bit more because they need the space, and then drag. There we go. And now hold down the Option key and then drag more. So in no time, whoops, I got one that it's in the wrong distance. In no time, look at how many bars I have made that are exactly equidistant from each other. No questions, height, size, anything. I can grab them all now, make them all a little bit skinnier. Give them a different color. If it's black, I can give them a different opacity, which is what Vera was saying that she gave hers. So they're black, but since I make them less opaque, they'll turn out a bit grayish. And the good thing is, since they're opaque, they're going to filter through a little bit of the color box that's behind. So say for example, that I have a box that's yellowish, that's going to look a little bit yellowish. Say that I had a box that was greenish, they're going to take on a little bit of that green tinge because they're underneath. Does that make sense? That color, they're reflecting that color. Or they might actually be on top at this point. No, they're underneath because I made them at the bottom. Okay, so if these strokes were even skinnier, and here, let me take the ones that fall outside of the thing off. If these strokes were even skinnier, they might be the stroke, like a little hairline point. They might give you that little, might need to make them a little bit wider than that. How about hairline point? That might be the lines of that art piece. Does that make sense? Where they're not really green or yellow, but because their opacity feature, they're taking on a little bit of that color, and that might help these guys look a little bit more like that. Does that make sense? So you might want to try that out, Vera, next time and see if that worked better. Okay, so I wanted to show you just a couple more things about alignment, you guys, because I want to be done with alignment, and I only have 3 minutes, but I've spent a bit more time than I was going to because I've showed you a couple more inside things and numbers. So let's do this. Is everyone with me before I move on to something else? Are you with me? I don't want to leave you totally far behind. Are you all good with this? Give me a yes. I'm just noticed that I left the heater on and that I'm actually warming up. Let's take my thing. I'm actually having fun because this thing is something I just bought. It's like a little bear, and it's really lightweight. One of those little fluffy lightweight things that I just got the other day when I went to get food at Costco. And you know how Costco is, you walk in for one thing and it cost 2 cents, and I saw it and I thought, oh my God, for my studio for the winter, I'm gonna just wrap myself in this thing. It's gonna get a lot of use, and I can already tell. So maybe I'm using it more than necessary because it's no. Okay, I'm seeing yeses everywhere, so I'm gonna assume that everyone is saying yeah. Oh, everyone did say yes. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna grab a shape, any shape, make 1, 2. Well, it's easier to do it at first if we have the same shape. So let's just do the same shape for a second. One shape, and then give it another shape, and put it in 3 different spots of this next one. Let's zoom in for a little bit. First, one thing that's going to happen now when you start having different shapes on different artboards is that now there's more smart guides. Because this smart guide here, what does it mean? Why is there a pink line here? And if you notice, it's giving me a line telling me that this shape is aligning, the center point of this shape is aligned with the center point of that shape. You see how they're connected? And you're like, that doesn't mean anything to this artboard. So why is that pink line showing up? And it's because it's aligning to that center point. Got it? So just saying that might begin to happen. That's a bit weird, but let's just ignore that for now. You would know what's happening if you had those shapes. And let's put these in 3 random spots. They make them not be squares, make them be a rectangle, and make it be the same one. I know, it's 12:45. Give me just a quick second. I'll show you something and you guys can play with it. And if you have questions, we can talk about it more next week. But There's other tools to align these without having to make guides and smart guides and whatever. So let's select all three of these. And once all three are selected, over here on the right side, the alignment tools appeared. And if you want them all to align at the bottom, for example, at the base, you would look at these little pieces of art and you'd see one that has a line at the bottom of two different shapes, and you'd click on that one. Boom. Now all three have aligned to the bottom. Now, if these, and I wanted to show you them first with the same shape so you can trust me that it's happening, or at the top. But it's more interesting if they're not the same shape. So let's make one be a shorty and one be a tallie. Okay. And then I'm leaving the same width just to make only one thing different. And now when I select all three and I say align to the bottom, yes, they are aligning to the bottom. When I say align to the top, they are, but it's always to the top or the bottom of the biggest one. Does that make sense? Now, if I were to say center them, boom, they're all going to align one on top of the other, which if they were different colors, you'd be able to see better because you're trying to get all the midpoints to be together. So I'm going to undo. So be careful with that because that's not the same thing as center them into the artboard. It's center them to themselves. Now, I would like someone to remind me next week because I don't have time to teach you today about how to align them differently. Can I align them to the top of the artboard or to the center of, to the right of something else? Yes, there's a way to do that. Right now, they are aligning to themselves. So if you, even if you have different distances or whatever, when you center, they all go to the same spot because they all are centering to themselves. So then when you try to use any of the others, well, not working, right? Because they're all already on top of each other. So I'm going to undo. And you have to be careful in which, or if I say vertical align on the other hand, that's going to work because vertical align, they are aligning their center points, but that is not collapsing them on top of each other because it's the center point from that side. Does that make sense? Now, if you want a few more options, you click on this little box right there and you have many other choices. So if I want the spacing to be distributed the same between them, then I got down here, distribute spacing. So I'm going to click on that. So now that space is the same as that space. Okay. So anyway, just play with some of these. Later we can talk about different alignments, but right now I wanted to show you that there's other ways to get things to be aligned. So even if these lines had been a little bit off for Vera, right? She had some down, some up, or whatever, the ones that she already did, she doesn't need to redo them all. She can just select them all. And then she could have just said align center. And boom, they've all aligned center. Does that make sense? So for things that are already done, you don't have to go and redo the whole thing. You can align them, you can select them, or you can just create them already aligned. But that's just one more thing. Let's save this thing and call it alignment. Let's call it smart guides and alignment practice. And then let's save it and give me a screenshot and you are allowed to take off and have a great weekend. Let me go and by the way, I haven't specifically mentioned which art piece you should be copying for next week. I would recommend whichever you want, but if you want to stay for a second, I can go and look at my art pieces with what we've learned today, which one might be the next logical upgrade. But let me just say use smart guides to create precise patterns. And you can also use alignment tools to, you can also align tools, whatever. Okay. So, what was I saying? Oh, I have it here in Bridge. These are the other pieces that I have given you. And for better or for worse, this one depends a lot on curves and gradients that I haven't shown you yet, but there's a couple here that are very they're very fluo, let's say. None of this matters. And you know how to make all of these shapes now. So you might want to work, and you might not know how to make the star yet. I haven't shown you that. But for the most part, you know how to do a lot of these shapes because a lot of these are based on curvature tools and stuff like that. So if you want to give this one a try, there's this kind of circles can be made just by making two circles of a different color, like a blue one inside of the other one and that little half moon. But if you get into trouble with the kind of stuff that's a little bit tricky in shapes, that's what we're going to learn next week. Okay, so don't worry too much. And then this could be a compound path or not. So there's this could be done in a more complicated way, but it could pretty much, if you want to challenge yourself, be done and maybe make one shape, make Saturn or something like that. You can do that. But also for non aligned shapes, this is a good one too, because it's maybe art. So this one, it would be similar to what you've been doing, but this would be good to get you to practice grouping, right? And making things in their own little positions. And since we're near Halloween, this makes more sense. Halloween, I'm sorry. Now this one here, it's going to be a bit more complicated. It has this one, you really need to be precise, and you have lines and shapes. And there's some tools in here that you still don't know, and you still wouldn't know how to do that star pattern in the back. So if you want to play around with the bat, maybe, but other than that, after we do some more work next week, you'll be able to do that one better. So I would recommend that for like free flow patterns, you go with this one and really practice with grouping and, you know, color and stuff like that. Or this one if you want to go even crazier. All right. All right. Have fun. And I'm happy to stay if you have questions or if something needs to be, if you want something more, please ask me.
Right. Thank you.
Other than that, I'll see
Have a
you.
good weekend. Bye.
Or for
Yeah.
some of you guys on Monday in the digital design techniques class. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's always fun. I love you guys are all participating and doing work. I'm just so happy with this group.
Hey,
Bye.
Deanna, I just want to let you know Monday, I'm always kind of late because I'm teaching. So I'll come in as soon as I can.
That's fine. And remember that Monday's also the day that I have to kind of catch people.
Oh, that's true. So that'll be fine.
Not
Okay.
an issue for you. Just show up so people meet you and whatever, but don't worry too much about missing stuff because the first day for you is not a thing.
Okay.
But don't not show up, right? But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, Vera. Thank you. Bye, Karen. Bye, Moni.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.